My stepson accused me of never treating him like family because I won't contribute to his college fund. I, 39M, have been married to my wife Emily, 38F, for 12 years. When we got together, Emily already had a son, James, 17M, from her previous marriage to Dan, 41M. Their divorce was messy. Emily left after catching Dan cheating with a coworker, who eventually became his wife. They've had 50-50 custody of James ever since I met Emily, about a year after the divorce. And we got serious fairly quickly, I'll admit. In the beginning, I tried too hard with James. I bought him gifts, forced small talk, tried to bond in a way that was probably overwhelming for a little boy still adjusting to a broken family. Eventually, I realized my stepdad campaign was backfiring. So I pulled back. Since then, James and I have existed in what I can only describe as a tense acceptance. He's civil, but he's never really warmed to me. Emily and I went on to have 3 kids together. Sophie, 10F, Caleb, 7M, and Ethan, 4M. James has never clicked with them either. He doesn't bully or mistreat them, he just ignores them. The older 2 have basically stopped trying to engage when he's around. Meanwhile, James gets along great with his half-brothers from Dan's second marriage, Emily, and I both have good jobs in tech and finance. So early in our marriage, we sat down and mapped out how we wanted to handle future college expenses. We came up with what felt like a fair split. I would cover 80% of the fund for our 3 kids. Emily would cover 20%. And in exchange, Emily would cover 100% of James's fund. Since he's her son from her first marriage at the time, we didn't know if Dan was saving for him. And frankly, he wasn't very forthcoming about finances, but we figured this way. At least James would have something. That was the system we stuck with. I put money aside for our 3. Emily put money aside for James. It worked smoothly. The blow-up a few weeks ago, Emily sat down with James to show him the numbers in his college fund. He seemed happy at first. He's been talking about applying to schools in-state, maybe one out-of-state art program, and what she had saved would make a big dent. But then he went to spend the weekend at Dan's. When he came back, he asked Emily point-blank about our other kids' funds. He wanted to know if theirs looked the same as his. Emily, being honest, told him the truth. Yes, we'd saved more for Sophie, Caleb, and Ethan, because I was contributing to theirs too. That's when James exploded. He accused me of playing family all these years, while secretly planning to shortchange him. He said it proved I never cared about him, that I'm just a hypocrite pretending to be a stepdad when I actually only care about my real kids. Emily tried to calm him down, but he was livid. He stormed off and wouldn't even look at me for days. Emily's suggestion. After things cooled down, Emily sat me down and floated an idea. She said we could take some money out of Ethan's, the youngest's, fund, give it to James now, and she'd replenish it slowly over time. She was clear that she wouldn't pressure me. She said it was my call, but honestly, I don't want to do that. James has made it abundantly clear he doesn't see me as family. He idolizes Dan, even though Dan's the one who cheated and blew up their family. James openly blames Emily for breaking the family apart, because she didn't forgive Dan's affair. At 13, he confronted her about it after a cousin spilled the story. When she explained the truth, he still said she should have kept the family together. He even said if the roles were reversed, if Emily cheated on Dan, then it would absolutely be her fault if the marriage ended. That conversation happened casually at dinner. No yelling, no hormones or heat of the moment. Just James calmly stating his mother was responsible for his father's cheating because she left instead of staying. We were stunned. We had to excuse the little kids from the table. We've tried therapy at several points. When Emily and I got engaged, after that dinner table conversation, and again last year. But every time Dan refused to cooperate, saying James didn't need therapy. And the last time we asked James directly, he flat out said, I don't need therapy with him. He's not my family. So to recap, James has rejected every attempt at bonding. He dismisses his half-siblings. He idolizes Dan. Despite Dan's infidelity, he's told Emily more than once that the divorce is her fault. And now that money is involved, suddenly I'm supposed to be family enough to contribute to his college fund? Our history of trying. I need to emphasize this. We have not treated James like an outsider. Whenever we've splurged on birthdays or holidays for our kids, James got the same. When he wanted something specific, we did our best to get it. For his 11th birthday, He asked to go to Disney World. We made it happen. He even invited Dan's sons along, but when it came to our daughter Sophie, who was the same age as one of Dan's kids, she wasn't invited. She cried at home while James spent a week in Disney with his half-brothers. We never punished him for that. Who understood he was navigating complicated loyalties. We also couldn't start James's college fund as early as we did with our kids because Emily was a stay-at-home mom during her marriage with Dan. She only got back on her feet financially after divorcing him, and it took a while. So by the time we were in a position to start saving for James, we already had Sophie. That gap in time means his fund will naturally be smaller. Emily has already promised she'll make up the shortfall out of her own pocket. She's committed to making sure he's not left high and dry. But no matter what, his fund won't be as big as what I've set aside for Sophie, Caleb, and Ethan, and James sees that as proof that I've been faking my role in his life all along. Where I stand, I don't hate James. I don't even resent that he idolizes Dan. I get it. Kids want to believe their parents are good people, but it cuts deep to see him blame Emily for being cheated on, dismiss me as not family, and then turn around and expect me to open my wallet. I also don't want to penalize my younger kids by taking money from their fund. Money I've worked hard to save, to appease a 17-year-old who has made it very clear he doesn't consider me his parent. I feel stuck between looking like the heartless stepdad stereotype and protecting the future I've planned for the kids who actually see me as dad. Emily has said she'll stand by whatever I decide. She's a wonderful partner, and I trust her completely. But the tension in the house is thick, and James is barely speaking to me. So yeah, Reddit. That's where I'm at. Update. My stepson accused me of never treating him like family because I won't contribute to his college fund first. Thanks to everyone who commented. Some of you were harsh, but honestly, I needed that outside perspective. Emily read some of it too, and it gave us a lot to think about before sitting down with James. We finally had that conversation last weekend. It was draining. The sit-down. We waited until the little ones were out of the house with my sister Aunt Julie. To them, she's a lifesaver. We didn't want them overhearing anything that could make them feel guilty or confused about family dynamics. It was just me, Emily, and James at the table. James came in already tense. He didn't make eye contact with me, only with Emily. She opened the conversation by acknowledging his feelings. She told him she understood why he was upset and that money issues can bring out strong emotions. She reminded him that he's loved, and that neither of us ever wanted him to feel like he was getting less than the younger kids. James listened, arms crossed, face tight. Then she asked him to let me explain my perspective. My side. I told James that I've always tried to do right by him. Even if I didn't always get it perfect, I reminded him of birthdays, holidays, vacations. All the times we made sure he wasn't left out. I said that I didn't see my role as replacing his dad, but as someone who wanted to support him and give him stability. Then I explained why our savings setup was the way it was. Emily committed to fully funding his college savings because she wanted him secure, committed to fully funding the younger kids' accounts because they're my responsibility. That arrangement was made out of practicality, not favoritism. I also told him flat out that it hurt to hear him say I was never family, especially when we tried so many times to get therapy or find ways to connect. James's reaction. He cut me off halfway through. He said, "You don't get it. It's not about Disney trips or Christmas presents. It's about the future. They're set up better because they're your kids. I'm not." That stung. Because he wasn't wrong about the numbers. Emily jumped in and told him she would personally make up the difference. She promised him, on the spot, that by the time he goes to college, she'll make sure his fund is at least comparable. She admitted it might not be exactly the same, but it wouldn't be unfair. James softened a little, but then he said something that made my blood run cold. "If Dad had stayed with you, this wouldn't even be a problem." Emily went quiet. I could see the hurt in her eyes. She asked him calmly if he truly believed she should have stayed married to a man who cheated on her. James just shrugged and said, "At least then I'd have both my parents together." The breaking point, I won't lie. I lost my temper a bit here. I told James that no one, not him, not anyone, gets to rewrite history and pin Dan's mistakes on Emily. I reminded him that his dad chose to cheat. That was his father's decision. Emily's decision was simply not to accept being betrayed. James pushed back with, "But he's still here for me." He comes to my games. He talks to me like I matter. That was the dagger. Because what he was really saying is that no matter what I do, I'll never measure up to Dan in his eyes. Emily tried to de-escalate, but the conversation ended with James storming out, slamming his bedroom door. Aftermath that night. Emily cried. Not about the money, about the fact that her son still blames her for Dan's cheating. She said it feels like she's been carrying this guilt unfairly for years, and it's poisoning her relationship with James. I held her and told her none of this is her fault. She's been an incredible mom under impossible circumstances. As for me, I went back and forth in my head a dozen times about whether to just give James some of my savings anyway, just to smooth things over, but every time I thought about it, I felt like I'd be reinforcing his belief that I owe him something he's refused to let me give. Being his parent, where things stand now, James is still barely speaking to me. He's civil with Emily, but cold Emily has already started shifting some of her savings around to increase James's fund. She's determined to prove to him that he won't be left behind. I told her I'd support her decision, but I still won't be dipping into the younger kids' funds. That money is locked for their future. We've decided not to push therapy again until James turns 18. At that point, he won't need Dan's approval to go, and maybe he'll be more open to it. It hurts, but I've accepted that I might always be the outsider in James's eyes. What I won't accept is letting that poison my relationship with my own kids, or letting him weaponize guilt to control how I spend the money I've saved for them. Closing thoughts. I know some people will still say I should have just written James into the plan from the start, that being a step-parent means full equality no matter what. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should have contributed earlier. But I also know this. You can pour years of effort, money, and love into someone, and if they're determined not to see you as family, nothing you do will change their mind right now. My priority is supporting Emily, protecting our kids' futures, and hoping that someday James will look back and see things a little clearer. That's the update, final update. My stepson accused me of never treating him like family because I wouldn't contribute to his college fund. It's been almost 3 years since my original post, and a lot has changed. Some things for the better, some not as much. I figured I'd come back with a final update since people often ask for closure on these family stories where James ended up. James is now 20 and in his sophomore year at a state university. He got in with a partial academic scholarship. He's always been smart, even if he never applied. That same effort at home between Emily's contributions, financial aid, and some small loans, his tuition and living expenses are covered. Emily worked her tail off to keep her promise. She funneled bonuses, tax returns, and even side consulting work into his account. By the time he started college, his fund wasn't equal to what our younger kids have. But it was enough that he noticed she kept her word. To his credit, he did thank her. Sincerely. For me, he barely acknowledged it. Relationship status with James. Our relationship never really repaired. When he graduated high school, he invited both of us to the ceremony. But it was clear he was tolerating my presence for Emily's sake. He sat with Dan's side of the family for photos. When Emily asked if I could join one, James said, "Maybe later." That later never happened. We still exchange the occasional polite conversation when he's home for holidays. He'll ask how work is or make small talk, but there's no warmth. And honestly, I've made peace with that. At some point, I realized I couldn't force a bond with him, and chasing his approval was only hurting me. I focus on being kind and consistent. If he ever wants more, the door's open. Emily struggles. This has been the hardest on Emily. She still carries a lot of guilt about James blaming her for the divorce. Even now, he occasionally makes comments about how things would have been different if Dad hadn't been left. It breaks her heart. We've had countless late-night talks where I remind her, she didn't break the marriage. Dan did, but guilt doesn't always listen to logic. Still, she's proud of keeping her word about the college fund. It gave her a sense of control in a situation where she's often felt powerless. The younger kids, our 3 little ones, are doing great. They're now 13, 10, and 7. They're aware, on some level, that James doesn't like spending time with them when he comes home. He mostly hides in his room or goes out with friends, but honestly, they don't seem hurt by it anymore. They've built their own world together, and while it's sad that they don't have much of a bond with their half-brother, they don't dwell on it. The college funds for them are intact and growing. Emily and I are on the same page that we won't raid those accounts. They deserve the same. Support James got Dan's role. This probably won't surprise anyone, but Dan has continued to coast from what we know. He hasn't saved a dime for James's college. He shows up for sports games, posts pictures on Facebook with captions like, "Proud dad of a future leader." But when it came to actual dollars, he left that to Emily, and indirectly, James still idolizes him, though that hasn't changed. And yes, it's still frustrating to watch him get credit for being the fun dad, while Emily does all the heavy lifting. But at this point, we've stopped wasting energy on being bitter about it. Looking back, here's what I've learned. Step-parenthood isn't equal. No matter how much effort, money, or love you give, the child may still see you as less than, and you have to accept that without letting it eat you alive. Money can't fix emotional wounds. Emily made sure James had financial support, but it didn't repair the resentment he carries. Those scars run deeper than dollars. Boundaries matter. I don't regret not dipping into my kids' funds for James. If I had, I think it would have only fueled more resentment in the long run. You can only control your lane. I can't make James see me as family. I can't rewrite the past. All I can do is be a steady presence, love my wife, and raise our kids. Final note: Emily and I are good stronger. Even navigating this forced us to have hard conversations about loyalty, fairness, and parenting. We don't always agree, but we're united in the belief that we did our best in a complicated situation. As for James, I hope one day he'll look back and see that I wasn't his enemy, that I wasn't trying to replace his dad. Just support him in the only way I knew how. If that day never comes, at least I'll know I stayed true to myself, my wife, and my kids. That's all the closure I can give. Stories number 2. My family is furious that I won't give up my grandmother's ring for my cousin's engagement. When my grandmother, Margaret, passed away 2 years ago, she left me something deeply personal: a sapphire ring. It wasn't the kind of thing you'd find in a jewelry ad. The band is a little worn, the stone is small, and the style is old-fashioned compared to what people buy today. But it was hers, and she specifically said she wanted me to have it. I was her first grandchild, and we always had a special bond. She used to let me sit on her lap while she sewed, and I'd play with that ring on her hand. She'd joke, "One day, this will be yours. Not because it's fancy, but because you're my girl and I know you'll appreciate it." When she passed, the family went through her things. My mom, her sister, my Aunt Linda, and the rest of the cousins were there. Some people got small keepsakes, some got photographs or books. The ring was the one item Grandma had explicitly written in her will to be mine. No one argued at the time. Everyone seemed to accept it. I wear the ring often. Not every single day, but at least a few times a week. It makes me feel close to her. Sometimes I catch myself fiddling with it during stressful days, and it calms me. It's not just jewelry to me. It's connection, memory, comfort. The cousin's request? Fast forward to last month. My cousin, Jessica, got engaged. She and her fiancé, Ryan, are young and still trying to get on their feet financially. She called me one evening and asked if she could borrow Grandma's ring. Her exact words were, "We can't really afford a proper ring right now, and it would mean so much to me to have something from Grandma just until we save up. Once Ryan buys me a ring, I'll give it back." I didn't even hesitate. I told her no. I tried to be kind, but I was firm. I said, "I'm really sorry, Jess, but that ring was specifically left to me, and it's very sentimental. I'd be worried something might happen to it." She pushed back a little, saying I was being dramatic. She said it's just a ring, and it would only be for a year or so. But I repeated, no. The family fallout. It didn't take long before the family got involved. My Aunt Linda called me. Furious, she said I was hoarding the ring when Jessica was starting her new life and needed it more. She called me selfish and accused me of clinging to objects instead of thinking about family. My mom was more subtle, but honestly more painful. She said, "Honey, I understand it's important to you, but maybe you could at least lend it. It's not like Jessica wouldn't give it back. Don't you want to support her?" I told her point blank, "Mom, if Grandma wanted Jessica to have the ring, she would have left it to her. She left it to me. That has to mean something." Mom sighed and said I was being stubborn. Now there's this weird tension at family gatherings. Jessica gives me cold looks, and Aunt Linda whispers loudly about people who don't know the meaning of family. Ryan tries to stay neutral, But even he made a comment about how I must not believe in love if I won't share why this matters to me. Here's the thing. This ring isn't sitting in a box, gathering dust. It's not locked away or forgotten. I wear it, I care for it. It means something to me every day. And beyond that, I don't trust that I'd ever get it back. Not because Jessica is malicious, but because life happens. What if she loses it? What if it gets damaged? What if they break up and it becomes a sore spot? What if she decides it's hers now because it was her engagement ring for years? It's not paranoia. I've seen how these things go once you lend out something deeply sentimental. The line between borrowed and mine gets blurry fast. The guilt trip. What hurts most is that I'm being painted as some cold, greedy person who cares more about jewelry than people I can already see the narrative forming. Jessica and Ryan were struggling, and her cousin wouldn't help them. But the reality is, it's not my job to provide them with an engagement ring. If Ryan can't afford one right now, then maybe they can wait. Or maybe he can propose without one. Or maybe they can pick out something inexpensive until they can upgrade. Plenty of people do that. I don't think it's fair that my sentimental keepsake is expected to fill that gap where I stand. I love my cousin, I'm happy for her, but I'm not giving up my ring, not temporarily, not permanently. My grandmother's last gift to me was clear. It was meant for me. And I feel like honoring that means protecting it, even if my family doesn't understand. So now I'm left wondering, am I really the selfish one here? Or is everyone just so wrapped up in Jessica's engagement that they've lost sight of what this ring actually means? Update. My family is furious that I won't give up my grandmother's ring for my cousin's engagement. Hi everyone. Thanks for all the comments and advice on my original post. I wasn't expecting it to get so much attention. But reading through the responses actually gave me a lot of perspective and reassurance that I wasn't losing my mind since I posted. Things have escalated. The group text incident, about a week after my cousin Jessica first asked to borrow the ring, she decided to air the situation in the family group chat. She sent a long message saying, "It's sad when family hoards sentimental things instead of sharing them. Grandma would have wanted love to come first. Ryan and I are starting our life together, and all I asked was to wear her ring until we could get one of our own, but apparently, I don't deserve it." Cue a flood of messages from different relatives. My Aunt Linda, her mom, chimed in with, "This is heartbreaking. Family should help family." My uncle, who usually stays out of drama, actually responded, "It was left to me. That's the end of it." And then people started picking sides. I didn't respond for a while, but eventually I wrote, "The ring was given to me by Grandma. She wanted me to have it. I wear it regularly, and it's not up for lending. Please stop making me out to be the villain for respecting her wishes." The chat blew up for hours. I muted it. The birthday party awkwardness. A couple of weekends ago, we had a family gathering for my younger cousin's birthday. I almost didn't go. But my mom guilt-tripped me and said skipping would prove I was being petty, so I went. And of course, Jessica and Ryan were there. Jessica made a big show of admiring everyone's jewelry. She'd say things like, "Oh, I love your necklace, Aunt Carol. Isn't it nice when people share family heirlooms instead of keeping them locked away?" Everyone knew what she was doing. I ignored it. But it was uncomfortable later in the evening. Ryan came up to me while I was getting a drink. He tried to play the reasonable guy card. He said, "Look, I know you and Jess are butting heads, but can't you just see this from her side? She's really hurt. It's not about money. It's about feeling like she's part of Grandma's legacy." I told him flat out. "Respectfully, Ryan, Grandma made her decision when she left the ring to me. It's not my job to rewrite that because you two can't afford a ring right now." He sighed and walked away. My mom stepped in after that party. My mom finally admitted she understood where I was coming from. She said she remembered Grandma explicitly telling her the ring was for me. Mom said, "I think your aunt is rewriting history because she wants Jessica to have a perfect engagement story." That was validating. But then she followed up with, "Still, for the sake of peace, maybe you could have let her borrow it." So, supportive but not really the kicker this week. I found out Jessica and Aunt Linda told extended family members that I'm holding the ring hostage. My cousin even posted a vague Facebook status. Funny how some people claim to love family but value objects over people. I haven't responded. I won't. But it's exhausting. Where things stand now, the ring is safe with me. I've started keeping it in a small home safe, instead of wearing it as often. Just because I don't trust certain relatives not to try something shady if they catch me off guard at a family event. As for Jessica, I've stopped engaging if she wants to be mad. She can be mad if my aunt wants to gossip, let her. At this point, I feel like every word I say is just fuel for them. I know one thing for sure. My grandmother chose me for a reason. I feel like honoring her memory means standing firm, even if it makes me unpopular right now. Final update. My family finally backed off about my grandmother's ring. Hey everyone, I wanted to close the loop on this whole saga because it finally came to a head, and I feel like the situation is as resolved as it's ever going to be. The breaking point, about 2 weeks after my last update, my aunt hosted a Sunday family dinner against my better judgment. I went because my mom begged me. She swore things had calmed down. Spoiler, they hadn't, partway through dinner. Jessica stood up to make a little toast. She thanked everyone for being supportive of her and Ryan, and then said, "It just hurts when certain family members don't want to share Grandma's love with us during this special time." Everyone went dead silent. I saw my uncle roll his eyes. My blood pressure spiked. I finally said, loud and clear, "Jessica, enough. Grandma left me the ring. Me, not you, not anyone else. It's not yours to borrow. It's not yours to guilt me over. And it's not yours to make passive-aggressive speeches about at dinner. This conversation is over." You could have heard a pin drop. Jessica started crying. My aunt muttered something about me being cruel, and I grabbed my coat and left. The fallout, the next morning, I woke up to a storm of texts. Some family members said I was harsh but justified. Others said I was cold. Honestly, I don't care anymore. The real twist. My mom called later that day and said after I left, my uncle, the one who had been quiet support before, actually laid into my aunt. He reminded everyone that Grandma was of sound mind when she wrote her will, and that trying to bully me out of what was legally and intentionally mine was embarrassing. Apparently, several relatives agreed and told my aunt and Jessica to drop it. The engagement ring solution. Here's where it gets kind of funny. A week later, I saw on Facebook that Ryan bought Jessica a small but pretty diamond ring. The caption was all about how love isn't measured in carats, but in commitment. Honestly, good for them. I don't even mean that sarcastically. Maybe this will finally take the spotlight off me where we stand now. I've put some serious distance between myself and Aunt Linda, Jessica. I muted them on social media, and I won't be attending every single family event anymore. My peace of mind is worth more than fake togetherness. My mom eventually admitted she respected me for standing firm. She said, "Grandma would be proud of you for not letting people push you around." That meant a lot. The ring. It's still mine, it's safe. And when I look at it, I don't think of the drama anymore. I think of Grandma. And the fact that she trusted me to protect something important to her. Final thoughts. This whole ordeal taught me that boundaries are uncomfortable, especially in families. But they're necessary. People will twist, guilt trip, and shame you if it gets them what they want. Holding firm doesn't make you selfish. It makes you the only adult in the room sometimes. So yeah, the ring stays with me. The drama has cooled. And honestly, I'm finally at peace. Stories number 3. My husband says I'm unfair for making him solo parent for 30 minutes a day. Okay, so this is going to be long because I want to explain it fully and maybe get some perspective. I'm Megan, 30F, married to Eric, 34M. We've been together for about 7 years, married for 5. We have 2 kids, Ava 2 and Noah 1. They're 15 months apart, so our house is basically a circus from dawn till dusk. I work part-time from home, noon until 5:30, Monday through Friday. The tricky part is that during those hours, I'm also the primary caregiver in the mornings. I'm all mom. I get the kids breakfast. We do activities, play in the backyard if the weather is nice, and I try to wear them out before their afternoon naps. Once they wake up from naps around 2:30 or 3:00, that's when the chaos starts. They're refreshed, they want attention, and they're at the age where they're into everything. But that's also when I'm glued to my computer, trying to finish work while wrangling toddlers. It's not ideal, but childcare is expensive and we haven't found another solution yet. Here's the dynamic. Eric works a standard 9 to 5 in construction management. He leaves the house by 7:30 and gets home around 5:30. Basically the exact minute my shift ends. As soon as he walks through the door, I'm closing my laptop and heading to the kitchen because I do all the cooking. That's our deal, I cook. He does laundry. It works because I hate laundry and he hates cooking. But here's the sticking point. I've asked Eric for one small thing. From the time he gets home until dinner is ready, usually 20-30 minutes, I need him to fully handle Ava and Noah. Just keep them out of the kitchen and safe so I can focus without having toddlers pulling at my legs while I'm chopping vegetables or opening a hot oven. You'd think 30 minutes wouldn't be a big deal, but for Eric, it's like pulling teeth. The tension point. Eric is a good dad. He really is. He plays with the kids. He changes diapers. He bathes them. It's not like he's hands-off, but when it comes to those first 20-30 minutes after he gets home, he acts like I'm asking him to move mountains. He'll try for a few minutes, then call into the kitchen. "Megan, can you help me? Noah's fussy." Or "Ava won't stop crying, what should I do?" Or "I have to pee. Can you just grab them for a minute?" And I get it. He's tired. He's been at work all day. But I've also been working and parenting all day. When he asks me to jump in during that little sliver of time, I feel like I'm never allowed to have a moment where the kids are solely his responsibility. The fight that sparked this post last night was the tipping point. I was in the middle of cooking dinner. Chicken stir-fry, which meant multiple pans going, hot oil popping, cutting vegetables. Basically a recipe for disaster if toddlers are running underfoot. Eric comes in holding Noah, who was crying, and Ava trailing behind, whining. He says, "Can you change Noah? He's soaked through and I can't deal with him and keep Ava from melting down at the same time." I said, "No, Eric, I can't stop. I've got the stove on. My hands are covered in raw chicken, and I just need 20 minutes of you handling this. I do this all day while working. I need this time." He snapped back that it wasn't fair, that I could stop for 5 minutes to help, and that I was acting like he wasn't also exhausted from a full day at work. We went back and forth. I held my ground at first, but eventually I caved because Noah was screaming and Ava was about to lose it, and the whole situation was spiraling. I washed my hands, changed Noah, handed him back, and went back to finish cooking. But inside, I was angry, because the entire point was that I need that little pocket of uninterrupted time. It's not me sitting with a glass of wine and my feet up. It's me cooking a meal for the whole family. The bigger picture. The frustrating part is that outside of this 30-minute window, Eric and I split things pretty evenly on weekends. He's great about giving me time to nap, run errands alone, or just breathe. I do the same for him after dinner. We usually tag team bedtime. Once the kids are asleep, we hang out or each get some solo downtime, but for some reason, this half hour has become this huge battle. He sees it as me clocking out of parenting just because he's home. I see it as the one time of day when I need him to take the reins so I don't burn dinner or have toddlers in harm's way. It's not like I'm asking him to watch them while I go out shopping for hours. It's literally 20-30 minutes while I cook, and yet every other night it feels like a fight, where I'm stuck. Eric isn't a bad guy, he's not lazy, and he does care, but he's made comments like, "It's just different when you're home all day, you can take breaks if you need to." That one really stung, because working from home with toddlers is not taking breaks. It's trying to answer emails while someone throws goldfish crackers at your keyboard. He also says that when he gets home, he wants a few minutes to decompress. He says it's unfair that he walks in the door and immediately has both kids thrown at him. And I get that. I really do. But then when do I get to decompress? Because when he gets home, I'm shifting straight from work Megan into mom in the kitchen Megan. There is literally no gap, so that's where we're at. I guess my question is, am I wrong for insisting that Eric solo parent for 20-30 minutes a day so I can cook? Or is this a reasonable boundary, and he's just not adjusting to the reality of 2 toddlers and 2 working parents? Update. My husband says I'm unfair for making him solo parent for 30 minutes a day. Hi again. Everyone, thanks for all the feedback on my original post. I didn't expect it to blow up the way it did, and honestly, reading through your comments has been eye-opening. A lot of you validated what I was feeling, and some of you called me out in ways that really made me think I shared the post with Eric too, since he knew I was writing it, and he read through quite a few comments himself. It actually sparked one of the most honest conversations we've had in a while, so here's where things stand. Our first real conversation about the 30 minutes after I posted. Eric and I sat down one night after the kids went to bed. I told him straight up that I was resentful about not even getting 20-30 uninterrupted minutes to cook dinner, Without being pulled back into kid duty, I explained that for me, it wasn't about cooking, it was about needing a mental shift. That window of time is my buffer between being in work mode and jumping back into mom mode for the evening. He said he hadn't really thought about it like that. From his perspective, he's working all day in a high-stress job, then immediately comes home and gets hit with the chaos of toddlers. He admitted that sometimes he stalls or asks for help not because he can't handle it, but because he wants that same buffer for himself. Basically, we both want the same thing at the exact same time, and we were both digging our heels in about who deserves it more. The trial run, we decided to test things out. For 1 week, Eric fully handled Ava and Noah from the moment he walked in the door until dinner was on the table. I told him no matter what, unless someone was seriously hurt, I wasn't going to step in. The first 2 nights were rough. The kids cried for me. Eric was overwhelmed, and I could hear the tension through the kitchen walls. But then something shifted by mid-week. He figured out little tricks, like putting on music and dancing with them, or giving Ava the job of helping set napkins on the table while Noah banged on pots with wooden spoons on Thursday. I came out with dinner ready, and Eric was sitting on the floor reading to both kids, and they were calm and actually happy. He looked at me and said, "Okay, I get it now." The compromise after that trial week, Eric admitted that yes, it is possible for him to handle both kids alone, and yes, it's important for me to have that cooking buffer. But he also asked for something in return. 15 minutes when he gets home where he can decompress before diving into parenting. So we worked out a new plan. He comes home, changes clothes, has a snack, or just sits for a few minutes, and then he takes over the kids while I cook. It pushes dinner a little later, but honestly, it's been working. The kids aren't starving. I give them a small snack when they wake up from nap. And it means Eric shows up more grounded instead of frustrated. The bigger realization, what really hit me through all of this, is how much we'd both been running on autopilot. I was building resentment because I felt unseen, and he was feeling constantly on demand the second he walked in the door. Neither of us really communicated that clearly until it boiled over. We also realized that while we do split things pretty evenly overall, we weren't always acknowledging each other's effort. I was tallying up how many hours I had with the kids versus how many he had, while he was tallying up his work stress versus mine. And the truth is, it's not a competition. It's both of us drowning sometimes in different ways where we are now. It's been about 3 weeks since we made this change, and things are smoother. Eric has stopped calling into the kitchen for help unless it's absolutely necessary. I feel less resentful because I know those 30 minutes are mine. And because he gets a few minutes to breathe when he first gets home, he's less likely to be short-tempered with the kids. We're also trying to be more intentional about expressing appreciation. Like, he'll thank me for cooking, and I'll thank him for handling bedtime's small, cheesy stuff. But it helps. Final thought, I don't know if this will be our forever solution. But for right now, it's working, and honestly, if I hadn't posted, I don't think we would have had the raw conversation that led to this compromise. So thanks to everyone who pushed me to see it. Wasn't about winning, but about both of us needing space and recognition. Final update. My husband said I was unfair for making him solo parent for 30 minutes a day. Hi again. I figured I'd circle back one last time since it's been about a year since my original post, and I wanted to close the loop for anyone who might stumble across it. Where we ended up with the 30 minutes. After our compromise, him getting a short decompression window before taking the kids, and me getting uninterrupted time to cook, things genuinely improved. That small adjustment did more than just fix dinner time. It shifted the dynamic in our house. I wasn't walking around resentful and frazzled, and Eric wasn't coming home dreading the handoff. It wasn't perfect every night, but it became a rhythm. He'd walk in, change out of work clothes, sit with a snack or scroll on his phone for 15 minutes, and then he'd be on by the time I came out of the kitchen with food. He had usually wrangled both kids into something calmer. Sometimes they'd be coloring, sometimes they were mid-toddler chaos, but he had found his own way to handle it. The kids getting older and easier. Kind of Ava is now 3 and Noah is 2. I won't pretend life suddenly got easier, but it did get different. They play together more, which helps, but of course that also means they fight more too. The biggest change is that they're starting to understand routines. So now when Eric walks in, Ava runs to get her helper stool for the kitchen, and Noah toddles after her, and half the time they end up helping me while Eric decompresses other nights. They want daddy story time right away. That flexibility made a huge difference. The kids don't cling to me like Velcro as much during dinner prep anymore, which has lowered the stress all around marriage-wise. I didn't realize how much I had been bottling up until that first blow-up. Since then, Eric and I have made a much bigger effort to talk before resentment builds. We've had some hard conversations, but we've both gotten better about saying, "I need space right now. I'm tapped out. Can you cover me? Thank you for doing X. It really helped me today." It sounds small, but it has made such a difference. We also started a system where once a week, one of us gets a true break in the evening. Friday is usually Eric's night. He'll go play basketball with friends or just watch a movie alone in our room. Sunday nights are mine. Bubble bath, book, or FaceTime with my sister without kids climbing on me. It's not a huge grand gesture, but it's a lifeline. Looking back when I reread my original post, I can see how defensive I was at the time. I really did feel like, is it too much to ask for 30 minutes? And honestly, it wasn't. But what I learned is that Eric wasn't failing me on purpose. He was drowning in his own way. Neither of us were villains. We were just two exhausted parents with toddlers, both desperate for breathing room and not great at expressing it. Now, when people ask us how we split parenting, we laugh and say, by constantly renegotiating. And that's honestly the truth. Final note. So, was I an AH back then? Maybe a little, but so was he. What we really needed was perspective and a plan. We're both better parents and partners now because of it. If any other tired parents are reading this, sometimes the answer isn't about who's right. It's about finding that tiny pocket of time where you can both breathe. Thanks to everyone who helped me see that. Stories number 4. My wife accused me of being ignorant when I told her. She was using weaponized incompetence. I'm 24. My wife Emily is also 24. We've been married just over a year, living together for about 3. For context, both of us lived alone before we met. So neither of us came straight from our parents' house without life experience right now. I'm on a work trip in Chicago. We live in Indianapolis, so I'm not that far, but far enough that I can't just swing by the house if something breaks. I'll be here for about a week. Normally, Emily handles herself just fine while I'm gone, but this time, things have been different. The recipe incident a couple days ago. Emily called me while I was sitting in my hotel room after work. She told me she was craving a pasta dish. I make it home. It's a creamy garlic pasta with chicken and spinach. I've made it for her dozens of times. She wanted to try making it herself. I thought that was cute. Honestly, I sent her the recipe I use, written step by step. Simple as it gets. About 30 minutes later, my phone rings. Emily, hey, how long do I boil the pasta? Should I try it with a fork to check? Or do I just follow the box? Me. Just follow the box directions. It's like 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the brand. Cool. No big deal. Then an hour later, she calls again. Emily. Okay, but do I cube the onion or slice it? Like, does it matter? Me. Babe, you can do either. I cube it. Usually doesn't have to be perfect. She kept calling every hour or so with little questions. Stuff I thought was either written in the recipe or things she already knew from watching me cook. By the 4th call, I was sitting there staring at my phone like, is she serious? I cook this dish once a week at least, at that point. I started to wonder if she was just leaning on me instead of trying. The shelf incident the next day. She sends me a picture of our bathroom towel shelf on the floor. It's one of those suction cup corner racks from IKEA. Honestly, those things fall off every once in a while, so I texted back, oh shit, oops, probably need to get a new one from IKEA. That one's done. She didn't respond. I figured, okay, she'll handle it. It's not like she's never been to IKEA before, but the next day, she called again, sounding frustrated. Emily. The towels are all over the counter. It's so annoying without the shelf. Me. Why don't you just grab a new one from IKEA and stick it up? Emily. I don't know which one to get. That floored me. I'm sitting there like, what do you mean you don't know which one to get? It's literally the same suction cup shelf we already had. You walk into IKEA, find the bathroom section, grab it. Done. I asked, what would you do if I wasn't around? Just live with towels all over the counter forever? She got defensive and said, well, you're the one who picked it out last time. I don't know what you look for in that stuff. At that point, I lost my patience a little. The weaponized incompetence blow-up. I told her, Emily, this is starting to feel like weaponized incompetence. You're acting like you can't do basic things so that I'll handle them. But I'm literally hundreds of miles away. You're distracting me from work with stuff you could totally figure out yourself. What happens if something bigger breaks? Like what if the roof leaks? Are you just going to sit there and wait until I get home to even call someone? She went quiet for a second, then said, "Wow, do you even know what weaponized incompetence means? That term is about men deliberately pretending not to know how to do housework, so women get stuck doing everything. You can't just flip it on me, that's not fair," I snapped back. Lazy is lazy, Emily. Doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, it's still the same behavior. The call ended on a tense note. We didn't yell, but the air was definitely icy, where I'm stuck. Here's the thing. I know weaponized incompetence is a phrase that came out of feminist discussions about gender imbalance at home. I get that. I've read those posts too, and I support the idea. I've seen guys pretend they don't know how to do laundry just so their girlfriend does it forever. That's messed up, but I also don't think the concept should be gender exclusive. If a grown adult is refusing to figure out life skills and leaning on their partner instead, isn't that the same thing? Emily thinks I'm being ignorant and misusing the term. She says she genuinely doesn't know how to do some of this stuff, which, okay, fine. But she lived alone for 2 years before we moved in together. She managed then. I feel like she's gotten comfortable with me handling certain things and now defaults to helplessness. I'm not saying this is divorce-level drama. It's not. We talk politics all the time, and usually we're on the same page. But this one has me stumped. Was I wrong to use that word? Is it one of those things like reverse racism, where using it outside the original context is offensive? Or is my frustration valid because I just want my wife to be able to handle basic adult stuff without needing me on speed dial? For the record, misogynists, don't bother chiming in. I'm not here to bash my wife or women in general. I just want to know if I messed up in how I said it, or if it's fair to call out the behavior regardless of gender update. Things escalated after the weaponized incompetence comment. After our last call, I honestly thought we'd cool off and talk later, but when I got home a couple days later, Emily was clearly still simmering. The moment I stepped in the door, she started asking about the kitchen situation and the bathroom shelf again, like nothing had changed. I tried to keep it calm. Emily, we need to pause. I want to talk about this without it turning into another call of "you're wrong." She looked frustrated and crossed her arms. I still think you were wrong to say I was using weaponized incompetence. You're being judgmental and ignoring the fact that I'm genuinely trying. I took a deep breath. I get that you were trying, but from my perspective, you weren't. You were leaning on me unnecessarily for things you can handle. I wasn't attacking you personally. I just wanted to point out the pattern. She sighed and walked away to the living room. I followed and tried to explain further. Think about it this way. You managed everything on your own before we lived together. You cooked, cleaned, organized your apartment. You know how to do these things. When you ask me 100 questions about pasta or towels, it makes me feel like you're expecting me to do the thinking for you instead of trusting your own ability. She listened but didn't respond. After a few minutes of silence, she said, I feel like you're attacking me with these terms. Weaponized incompetence is supposed to describe men systematically avoiding chores and responsibilities in a way that takes advantage of women. You're using it against me, and it's hurtful. Nodded. I get that it's originally from a feminist context, but it's also a behavior, not just a gendered thing. Anyone pretending they can't do something so someone else will do it is, well, it's the same pattern. I just wanted to be honest about how it made me feel. We spent the next hour going back and forth. I tried to give examples calmly. The pasta, the bathroom shelf, little things where she leaned on me for help instead of trying herself. She explained where she really didn't know and where she just defaulted to asking me. By the end, we agreed on a compromise. Emily would try to handle small household tasks herself first, without calling me immediately for confirmation on every little step. I'd still be available for guidance, but only if she had genuinely tried and needed help. We'd both try to avoid labeling each other with loaded terms in arguments, because that tends to escalate things unnecessarily. We both admitted we'd been frustrated and misunderstood each other. It wasn't perfect, but at least we were talking instead of silently stewing. Final update: a week later. Things have actually improved. Emily handled a few kitchen tasks on her own and even fixed a small cabinet hinge that had been loose. She did it without calling me. Once I noticed she was more confident and proactive, and I tried to give her credit instead of nitpicking. I've also realized that weaponized incompetence might not have been the perfect term to use in this context. Even if the behavior itself was real, I could have phrased it differently, focusing on how I felt rather than labeling her. She admitted that some of her frustration came from feeling accused instead of supported. We're back to normal routines. She even cooked the creamy garlic pasta successfully. No calls, no questions, and it tasted perfect. Small victories, but meaningful. Honestly, I think the whole episode taught us both a lot. Communication matters more than terminology. Sometimes, calling out patterns has to be done gently. Living together as adults means both of us need to be proactive, without leaning on each other unnecessarily. We're still figuring out life together, but it feels like a step in the right direction. I feel like I handled it as best I could without turning it into a major fight, and Emily feels more confident taking on tasks herself. So, lesson learned. Sometimes you notice a pattern. Sometimes you name it. And sometimes the key is patience, empathy, and a bit of humor along the way. Stories number 5. Refusing to pay for daycare. When my mom already watches our son, I'll start by saying this. I adore my son. His name is Lucas, and he's almost 3 now. He's the center of my entire world, and everything I do circles back to wanting the best for him. For context, I'm 34M, my ex-wife, Emily 32F, and I finalized our divorce almost a year ago. The marriage had been rocky for a while. We didn't implode in some huge dramatic affair or betrayal. It was more like a long, slow unraveling. We were very different people once you pulled back the curtain of new parents just trying to survive. When we divorced, we agreed on 50-50 custody financially. I pay $900 a month in child support, and on top of that, I cover 100% of Lucas's healthcare and education costs. That includes his checkups, prescriptions, speech therapy if he needs it down the road, and things like preschool tuition when he's old enough. It's not cheap, but I do it because he's my kid now. Here's the issue. Daycare. When Lucas was about 10 months old, Emily wanted to start grad school. We knew daycare would be the logical option, but my mom, Patricia, or Mimi, as Lucas calls her, offered to watch him. She was recently retired from teaching and said she wanted to spend more time with her grandkids. My siblings also bring their kids to her, so Lucas gets to play with his cousins on top of getting one-on-one time with her. At first, I was hesitant. I worried it would be too much responsibility for her, and I didn't want her retirement years to feel like a second career. But she insisted. Emily was thrilled with the idea, and honestly, it worked beautifully. Lucas loves his Mimi. She adores him, and as a bonus, she's a retired bilingual educator who spends her days teaching him letters, numbers, Spanish vocabulary, and just pouring love into him. Fast forward to now. Emily suddenly wants Lucas in daycare. She says he needs to be around more kids his age, that it's better for his development, and that my family has too much influence on him. Her words, not mine. I asked her if she had any specific concerns, like if she thought my mom was overstepping boundaries, or if she thought Lucas wasn't learning enough. She couldn't point to anything concrete, just that she felt like he should be in a daycare setting. Here's the kicker. Daycare here costs about $250–300 a week. Emily flat out admitted she can't afford it, so she wants me to pay for it entirely. And I told her no. I said, Emily, Lucas has a loving, safe, educational environment at Mimi's. He's not just sitting in front of a TV all day. He's getting quality time with his cousins, with his grandmother, with someone who has actual teaching experience. On top of that, I already pay child support, health care, and education costs. If you want him in daycare for your half of the custody schedule, you need to cover it. She did not take that well. Emily accused me of trying to keep Lucas in my family's bubble, and of making things unfair since daycare is standard for kids his age. She said I was putting my mom's wants over Lucas's needs when I asked her to explain what Lucas needs that he's not already getting. She went in circles about socialization, but again, he's around cousins constantly. He also goes to the park, story time at the library, playdates. He's not isolated. The truth, as I see it, is that Emily wants daycare because it feels more normal to her. Maybe it makes her feel less dependent on my family. But if she wants that, she needs to figure out a way to pay for it, because right now, what's happening works. Lucas is thriving. My mom is happy to do it. I check in with her constantly to make sure she's not feeling burned out. She reassures me she loves it. My siblings back me up and say their kids are thriving. 2. The last month has been a constant back and forth of her pressuring me saying no, and her acting like I'm the unreasonable one. My friends are split on it. Some say I should just suck it up and pay for daycare to keep the peace. Others say I'm right to stand firm because Emily is basically asking me to pay extra money for no real reason. I don't see how strangers at daycare are inherently better than his grandmother, who has 30+ years of teaching experience. So here we are, stalemate update. Refusing to pay for daycare. Hey everyone, thanks for all the responses. I read through hundreds of them. And while people were divided, it was honestly helpful to see things from multiple angles. Some folks said daycare is absolutely essential. Others said my mom sounds like a gem, and I should keep things the way they are. Since posting, things have escalated a lot more than I expected. Emily didn't drop the daycare issue. In fact, she doubled down. She sent me 3 separate links to different daycare centers in our city, all of them in the $250–300 per week range. Each time, she wrote something like, "This would be so good for Lucas, and you can afford it." I replied calmly every time, "If you want him in daycare, you need to pay for it. I'm already covering child support, healthcare, and education." Her response? She told me I was withholding opportunities from our son. That phrase stuck with me, because it felt like she was framing it like I was purposely depriving him of something necessary. I brought this up to my mom, and she was furious on my behalf. A few days later, Emily tried a different tactic. She told Lucas, yes, a 2-year-old, that he'd get to play with new friends soon and go to a fun school. When Lucas came to me excited, asking about new friends' school, I was livid. I told Emily she needed to stop planting ideas in his head before anything was decided. She accused me of being controlling again. Then came the kicker. Emily reached out to her lawyer. Last week I got a message from mine saying Emily was considering filing a motion to modify custody arrangements. Her argument? That Lucas being primarily with my mom was not the same as being in an accredited childcare program, and that daycare was more appropriate for his development. My lawyer told me not to panic, because judges don't usually interfere with childcare arrangements unless there's clear evidence the child is being harmed. And in our case, there's zero evidence of that Lucas is healthy, happy, and thriving. Still, the idea that she's willing to drag this into court over daycare has made things way more hostile between us. On top of this, her parents got involved. Her mom, Karen, yes, really, called me up and said it wasn't fair that my family gets all the time and influence, and that daycare would be neutral ground. I told her point blank that daycare isn't neutral. It's just another choice, and that choice costs money. Emily doesn't have Karen hung up on me. Meanwhile, my mom has started second-guessing herself. She told me she feels guilty for being the center of the drama, and offered to step back if it would help. I shut that down immediately. She's doing an amazing job, and I refuse to let Emily guilt her into thinking otherwise. The sad part is that Lucas has started picking up on the tension. When we did a custody exchange last week, Emily was short with me in front of him, and Lucas asked, "Daddy, are you mad at Mommy?" That broke me. I've tried so hard to keep this civil, but now I'm realizing Emily is willing to turn this into a battle, and that's not good for our kid as of right now. My lawyer is preparing a response just in case she does try to take it to court. We're gathering letters from my siblings, my mom, and even Lucas's pediatrician, all saying that he's in a healthy, loving, stable environment. I don't know where this ends. I want to avoid court if possible, but I'm not going to cave and pay for daycare just because Emily feels left out of the child care arrangement. If she wants daycare for her custody days, she needs to figure it out financially. Period. The whole situation has made me realize how different our priorities are. For me, it's about what actually benefits Lucas day to day. For her, it feels like it's about appearances and control. I'll admit, though, I'm exhausted. Final update. Refusing to pay for daycare. Well, things have finally settled, and I wanted to come back with a full update for everyone who followed along. Emily did end up filing the motion. I'll be honest, when my lawyer first told me, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. It's one thing to argue over texts, it's another to drag it into a courtroom, But I was ready. My lawyer told me from the beginning. Courts don't like to fix what isn't broken. The burden is on her to prove daycare is necessary. The hearing was about 3 weeks ago. Emily came in with her lawyer and a folder of daycare brochures. She argued that Lucas being with my mom so often gave unbalanced influence to my side of the family and deprived him of peer interaction. She talked a lot about neutrality and independence, but when the judge asked if Lucas was healthy, social, and hitting developmental milestones, she admitted yes. When asked if she could personally afford daycare, she admitted no. Her whole case boiled down to, it feels unfair that his grandma is the caregiver. My lawyer brought in letters from Lucas's pediatrician and one of his old playgroup teachers, both saying he's thriving. We also had statements from my siblings about how he spends time with his cousins and has tons of peer interaction. The kicker, though, was my mom. She testified via video call and absolutely nailed it. She explained her background as a retired educator, her bilingual teaching, and how much Lucas enjoys being with her. She also calmly said that she always checks in with me and never felt forced into it. The judge visibly nodded along after both sides finished. The judge basically said, daycare can be great, but so can family care. He told Emily that unless she could prove Lucas was being harmed, there was no basis to order daycare, and he certainly couldn't make me pay for it. He even said, the court is not in the business of micromanaging perfectly fine child care arrangements. Motion denied. Emily was crushed. She started crying in the courtroom, and her lawyer just patted her on the back. I didn't gloat. I honestly just felt tired. Since then, things have been tense but calmer. Emily hasn't brought up daycare again, at least not directly. She did send me a long email saying she still feels like Lucas should have the daycare experience, but that she accepts the ruling. She also admitted that part of this fight came from jealousy of how close Lucas is with my mom. That, I can actually understand. It's tough to be the parent who feels like they're being overshadowed. My mom was relieved, but also said she's happy to step back if Lucas ever wants daycare. She said something that stuck with me. This isn't about winning or losing, it's about making sure he's loved and safe. And she's right for now. Lucas is happy as ever. He spends weekdays with Mimi, gets cousin time, and still has plenty of social interaction through community classes and playdates. He's learning Spanish from my mom and can already count to 10 better than I can. As for me and Emily, our co-parenting relationship definitely took a hit. I don't fully trust her not to pull something like this again, but I'm trying to stay civil. At the end of the day, we're stuck with each other as parents, and Lucas deserves peace, not drama, so that's where things stand. No daycare for now, no extra costs for me, and Lucas is thriving. If he ever asks to go to daycare, or if circumstances change, I'll consider it. But I'm not going to bankroll it just because my ex feels left out. Thanks to everyone who weighed in. This whole ordeal was exhausting, but it reminded me of two things. Courts don't fix what isn't broken. Kids pick up on way more than we think, so it's our job to shield them from as much of the ugly stuff as possible. Here's hoping things stay calm from here. Stories number 6. Ada for selling the concert ticket. I bought my friend because she can't pay me back, so I-19F, let's call me Rachel, recently bought Ariana Grande tickets for myself and 3 friends. The tour is hitting California, and the pre-sale was a nightmare, but I managed to snag 4 seats at $103 each after fees. I put it all on my card because we had agreed ahead of time that I'd buy, and they'd all pay me back within the week. Easy, right? Well, not so much. The friends in question: Sarah 19F, Lily 19F, and Megan 19F. Sarah and Lily Venmo'd me within 24 hours. No problem, Megan, though. She immediately started with, "Ugh, I thought tickets were going to be $80 or $90, not over $100. She kind of dragged her feet and asked if she could hold off on paying me back. Mind you, Megan had just blown over $1,000 in July on random stuff. Brunches, new clothes, a weekend trip, DoorDash every other night. I see her dropping $20, $25 on lunch daily without blinking. So I was like, okay, you clearly have money. You're just choosing not to prioritize paying me back. At first I tried to be understanding. I offered, hey, you can just give me $20 a month for 5 months if that's easier. She hesitated and said she'd try, but then days turned into weeks. Every time I reminded her, she'd say, I'll send it tonight. And then nothing. Fast forward to last week. One of my close friends from high school, Ava, she's in Colorado now, texted me devastated because she couldn't get tickets during the general sale I mentioned. Well, funny enough, I actually have one that hasn't been paid for yet. I didn't tell her I was definitely selling it, but I said it was a possibility. She immediately offered me $200 for it. She was desperate and didn't mind the markup, but I told her I wouldn't scalp her. I'd sell it at face value if Megan bailed. So I texted Megan again, telling her that I really needed a solid payment plan because I was uncomfortable with her owing me so much for this long. She instantly took it as me ditching her for Ava, even though I explained like 3 times that wasn't the point. A 5-hour texting marathon. Megan kept flip-flopping. First, she said she could maybe do $20 here and there. Then she claimed she could give me $50 now and $50 next month. But earlier she had said she didn't even have $50. I asked where this sudden $50 was coming from. She ignored the question I pressed her again for a clear, reliable plan. And she kept dodging or saying, "I'll figure it out." Meanwhile, I'm a broke student, I work part-time, but I'm covering part of my tuition myself. I had just dropped $400+ on these tickets for everyone, and I'm not rolling in cash. The whole point of the agreement was that everyone paid me back quickly. So it wasn't a financial burden. At one point, Megan literally said, "It just feels bad to spend $100 in one sitting. I don't like seeing that much money come out at once." I was like, "Okay, but that's not my problem. I already fronted the money for you." And honestly, how do you think I felt when $400 disappeared from my account in one day? Eventually I told her straight, "Because you can't give me a definitive plan, I feel more comfortable giving the ticket to Ava, since she can pay up front." Megan blew up. She said it wasn't fair that I only gave her a day to sort it out. And even though we'd had this plan in place for weeks, she accused me of choosing another friend over her and ruining our best friendship over a couple of dollars. I kept my cool and said, "It's not about the friendship. It's about the agreement we made. You've dodged paying me back multiple times, and I need to protect myself financially." Her counter-argument? "I told you I could pay you back eventually, you just didn't want to wait." Which is exactly my point. She eventually would. But she was never reliable about how or when. The kicker? Megan doesn't even like Ariana's new album, which is what the tour is centered on. She literally said she was only going because of FOMO. She flat out admitted she wasn't excited. She just didn't want to be left out. Meanwhile, Ava loves Ariana, knows every lyric, and has been dying to go. After hours of going in circles, I sold the ticket to Ava. At face value, Megan found out and sent me this long emotional text about how betrayed she felt. She ended it with, "I can't believe you'd sell my ticket to someone else when I told you I'd pay you. I don't even know if I can forgive you." It sucks, because Megan and I were really close. But at the end of the day, I wasn't willing to risk her dragging this debt out for months while I stressed about it. I'd rather deal with her being mad than be out $100. I don't have. Sarah and Lily are both on my side. Sarah actually said, "If Megan can't even commit to paying back her best friend, she doesn't deserve the ticket." Lily pointed out that Megan's whole argument was emotional, not practical, and now Megan's ignoring me. Ava is thrilled and already booked her flight to come to California for the show. Sarah and Lily are relieved we don't have to worry about Megan complaining the whole night since she wasn't even a fan. But I keep going back and forth in my head. On one hand, I feel justified. I gave Megan chance after chance, and she still couldn't commit. On the other hand, losing a best friend over $100 feels brutal. That's where I'm stuck. Would you have done the same thing? Or should I have trusted that she'd eventually pay me back and just sucked it up for the sake of the friendship? So, here's the fallout. After I sold Megan's ticket to Ava, first off, Megan went completely no contact with me for about a week. She unfollowed me on Instagram, removed me from her private Snapchat story, and even left our group chat with Sarah and Lily. It honestly felt like a breakup. I tried reaching out twice, once with a short, "Hey, can we talk?" text, and once with a longer message, basically saying I never wanted to hurt her, but I had to make a financial decision. Both left unread. Meanwhile, Ava was thrilled when I told her the ticket was officially hers. She even offered to cover parking and gas on the concert day, since she knows I'm still a little stressed financially. She's literally already planning our outfits. Sarah and Lily said they're relieved too, because they both felt Megan would have complained the entire night or sat there bored since she's not even into Ariana's music. But here's where it got messy. Megan didn't just freeze me out, she went to our mutual friends. Suddenly, I was getting DMs from people asking if I really sold Megan's ticket behind her back. One girl even accused me of choosing money over friendship. I had to explain the whole timeline. That Megan had weeks to pay me, kept dodging, contradicted herself, and only wanted the ticket for FOMO. Once I laid it out, most people understood. A couple even said Megan pulled similar stuff before, like not paying for her share of Airbnb trips until the last minute, or forgetting to Venmo for gas. Then came the confrontation. Last Friday, I ran into Megan at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. She ignored me at first, then eventually said in front of everyone, "Hope the $100 was worth losing your best friend." It was awkward as hell. I calmly said, "It wasn't about the money, it was about trust. You had every chance to follow through, and you didn't." She rolled her eyes and muttered something about me being money-obsessed. After the party, Sarah told me Megan had been telling people I sold her out just because Ava offered me more money, which is flat out wrong. I sold the ticket for face value. Sarah and Lily both backed me up and corrected people. But it's clear Megan is leaning into this victim narrative. Here's the kicker. Megan posted on her story a couple days later saying, "Lesson learned. Never trust people who only see dollar signs instead of loyalty." Everyone knew it was about me. Ava saw it too and messaged me, "You 100% did the right thing. She's just embarrassed she got called out for not being responsible." I'm not gonna lie, it stings. Megan and I were close for years, but now the friendship feels dead in the water. She hasn't apologized, hasn't acknowledged the real issue, and seems more focused on painting me as a bad guy than owning up to her part. The funny part? This whole thing makes me even more confident I made the right call. If $100 and one concert ticket was enough to completely wreck our friendship, maybe it wasn't as solid as I thought. The concert's in a few months, and I'm actually excited again now that I don't have to stress about chasing Megan for money or dealing with her bad attitude all night. Ava's hyped, Sarah and Lily are hyped, and honestly, I think it'll be a better experience without the drama. Still, I can't help but grieve the friendship a little, but maybe it's one of those times where someone shows you who they are, and you just have to accept it. Update. The concert finally happened last weekend, and it was amazing. Honestly, it felt like the perfect closure to this whole messy situation. So it was me, Ava, Sarah, and Lily who ended up going. Ava was on cloud 9 from the moment we got in the car. She had been counting down the days. She even surprised all of us with matching glittery makeup kits so we could go all out Ari style. The energy in the arena was insane, and for the first time in months, I felt completely free of all the drama. During No Tears Left to Cry, I caught myself tearing up a little, not just because of the performance, but because I realized how much lighter life felt, without constantly worrying about whether Megan was going to pay me back, whether she was upset with me, or whether I was being a bad friend for setting boundaries. The whole night was pure fun. Meanwhile, Megan wasn't done with her side of things. About a week before the show, she posted on social media about how she could have been at Ariana Grande if people weren't fake. On the actual day of the concert, she uploaded a story of herself at home with a caption like, "Better to be real than to sell out your friends for tickets." At that point, I just muted her. I didn't want the negativity ruining my night after the concert. Ava Venmo'd me for parking, as promised, and Sarah sent me money for snacks without me even asking. It hit me how much healthier these friendships feel. Like I'm surrounded by people who actually respect me and follow through. No games, no guilt trips. As for Megan, I haven't heard from her directly since the birthday party confrontation. She's still telling mutuals I chose money over friendship, but most people have gotten the full story by now. A couple even told me privately that they're distancing themselves from her because she always makes things transactional and dramatic. I don't feel the need to defend myself anymore. Looking back, I realized the ticket wasn't the real issue. It was just the breaking point. Megan had a pattern of dodging responsibility, expecting everyone to cater to her, and then flipping it back on you if you pushed back. I kept excusing it because we were best friends. But best friends don't make you feel guilty for expecting the bare minimum, so, final word. The concert was incredible. My friendships with Sarah, Lily, and Ava are stronger than ever. And Megan and I? We're done. It sucks, but in a way, I'm grateful. Sometimes a messy situation is what it takes to show you who actually has your back. And if I learned anything from this whole ordeal, it's that a real friend will pay you back. Or at the very least, not make you feel like a villain for asking. Stories number 7. Ada for buying my niece 2 pairs of glasses and letting her get contacts. I have a 12-year-old niece. Haley lives with her dad, stepmom, and 4 younger step-siblings. 2 boys, 2 girls. Don't know the exact ages, but they seem to be between 5 and 10. Her mom passed when she was 3. Haley's dad and stepmom are not well off. They live in a 3-bedroom house, so Haley shares a room with her stepsisters. The kids get 1 pair of shoes, reuse school supplies until they're falling apart, and if their clothes still fit, they don't get new school clothes. I am doing a lot better, but I refuse to help him with money, because if I give him money with the direct instructions to get Haley some decent shoes or a nice jacket, I expect the money to be used on Haley, not split between all 5 kids. He also dislikes me because he blames me for CPS investigating him and his wife for leaving the kids home alone every day. Haley stays with me after school and sleeps over a few nights a week because I won't drop her off if there's not an adult present, and I told her not to get on the bus under any circumstances. So they can't tell her I wanted her to take the bus home that day. Haley and 2 of her step-siblings needed glasses. Nobody was able to take Haley for her eye exam and to get the glasses, so they asked me to take her and gave me $100 with the instructions to get the cheapest pair we can find. I was driving Haley to the eye doctor, and she told me she really wanted contacts, but her dad said, no. I talked to the receptionist, and they were able to get her in for a contact fitting that day. After her contact appointment, we checked out the glasses, and she found 2 pairs that she really liked, so I told her to get both. I took her back after school a few days later and picked up a few boxes of contacts. Her new glasses came in a few days ago, and she loves them, but her dad is furious about the glasses. Then he found out about the contacts. I guess Haley was keeping them in her backpack and never told him about it. So he told her she gets to keep 1 pair of glasses and everything else has to stay at my house because he's sick of me and Haley rubbing her stuff in her step-siblings' faces. Haley responded by packing most of her stuff and walking to my house. Now she's refusing to go home. CPS came for another investigation and was told by the kids that Haley doesn't live there anymore, which is not helping my BL's case. Now my bill wants me to make Haley come back and stop spoiling her so she won't rub it in her siblings' faces anymore. Her rubbing it in their faces means she put both pairs of glasses on her dresser, but it wasn't fair because the other kids could see it. Ita for getting her contacts and 2 pairs of glasses. Update. AITA for buying my niece 2 pairs of glasses and contacts. Haley has been in the hospital since Saturday for either ulcerative colitis or Crohn's. Her health insurance pretty much only lets her go to the county hospital and medical centers, and even this is going to get expensive. On top of Haley's stomach situation, she also has type 1 diabetes and ADHD. The ADHD is currently not being treated. We live 20 minutes away from one of the best children's hospitals in the country for both GI and diabetes. They also have a great psych department and ADHD clinic. This would be covered under my insurance. 35 minutes in the other direction is another world-renowned children's hospital that I would be able to send her to. I sat Haley's dad down the other day and showed him how much I was paying each month for Haley between her health insurance premiums, her insulin, monitor and pump, her EpiPens, doctor's appointments, etc., and told him that I refused to continue to pay out the ass for her to receive medical care that is subpar at best when, if I was her guardian, she would get some of the best care possible for less than what I'm paying now. After a long discussion and a lot of back and forth, he agreed to give me guardianship of Haley. We started the process yesterday. She will live with me, but will see her dad every other weekend and holiday. We talked to Haley about it today. She is very excited to officially live with me. Stories number 8. I never thought I'd be the type of person to break down in anger at someone I love, but today pushed me there. I'm 24, and earlier this week I ended up in the hospital after fainting twice in the same day. 1 minute I was standing. The next I was on the ground with zero memory of how I got there. Scary doesn't even cover it. The paramedics were kind. The doctors were quick. But through the entire process, from calling 911, riding in the ambulance, getting admitted, I was completely alone. No one was there to hold my hand, to sign paperwork, or even just sit with me while I waited for tests. My sister, Erin, 22, is my listed emergency contact. She's the one I always thought I could rely on if something ever happened. So when the nurse told me I might be staying a few days, I texted her asking if she could bring me some basics, sweats, phone charger, a book, maybe even a familiar snack. Her response? Maybe Sunday or Monday. At the time it was Thursday, I stared at my phone for a solid 5 minutes before my frustration boiled over. I asked her how she could possibly think leaving me here for days without any of my things was okay. Her only reason was that she wasn't sure about her schedule. And listen, I get it. She's in college, she has classes, she's got her own life, but she doesn't live far. She doesn't have a job right now, and hospital visiting slots are twice a day. This wasn't me asking her to drop everything forever, just an hour to bring me a bag of clothes instead. I was left with this sinking feeling that if I can't count on my own sister when I'm lying in a hospital bed, who can I count on? I lost it. I texted back something harsher than I should have, accusing her of not caring, of leaving me alone when I needed her the most. I felt abandoned and angry and scared all at once, and she got the brunt of that. The guilt hit not long after. Erin and I don't have bad blood. We're usually close, we joke around, and she's been supportive in other parts of my life, which makes this sting worse. I can't shake the thought that maybe I was expecting too much, that maybe she genuinely didn't know how serious this was at the same time. How do you not prioritize your sibling being hospitalized after fainting twice? Tonight, I'm lying here in this too bright hospital room, hooked up to monitors, hearing the beeping machines of other patients, and feeling this mix of anger and sadness. I don't know if I overreacted or if my sister underreacted. Maybe both. All I know is, this was one of the scariest days of my life, and instead of feeling supported, I feel completely on my own. And honestly, that's the part that hurts the most. I wasn't planning on updating, but a lot has happened since I posted, and I need to get this off my chest. So after I wrote my post, I was still in the hospital. I stayed 3 nights total because they wanted to run tests, monitor my heart, and make sure nothing serious was going on. The fainting spells turned out to be connected to a mix of low iron, dehydration, and stress. Nothing life-threatening, thank God, but still serious enough that the doctors gave me a full lecture about taking care of myself. Now, about my sister Erin. After I snapped at her, she didn't text me back the rest of Thursday. I was furious, but also exhausted, so I left it. On Friday morning, she finally came to the hospital. Not with a bag of my things, not even with a coffee or snack. She came in empty-handed and just sat at the edge of my bed scrolling through her phone. I kid you not, she was on TikTok while I was hooked up to a heart monitor. I asked her why she hadn't brought my stuff like I asked, and she shrugged and said, "I didn't know what you needed exactly." I wanted to scream. I literally spelled it out for her in a text. Sweats, charger, book, maybe snacks. It wasn't complicated, I told her that, and she rolled her eyes and said, "I didn't think it was that urgent." That's when I realized we weren't just having a miscommunication. She genuinely didn't see me being in the hospital as a big deal. She said she thought I was fine since I was texting and posting on Instagram. Yeah, I posted one story from my hospital bed saying, "Guess who fainted again?" Because humor is how I cope. But apparently that made her think I was just chilling in here like it was a hotel. I tried to explain that being hospitalized isn't just about whether you're actively dying. It's about needing support, comfort, and not feeling like you're completely alone. She brushed me off and said I was being dramatic. That hurt more than anything. I didn't expect her to drop her entire life. But I did expect my own sister, my emergency contact, to care enough to show up when I asked instead. I felt like I was asking for a favor rather than something that should have been a given. The real kicker. My friend Lauren, 20F, who doesn't even live that close, heard about me being in the hospital through Snapchat. She drove 40 minutes on Saturday, brought me a bag with comfy clothes, my charger, and even my favorite candy. She stayed with me for a few hours, cracked jokes, and just made me feel human again. I cried after she left because it hit me that a friend who had no obligation stepped up more than my own sister. When I was discharged, Erin didn't even offer me a ride home. My mom ended up picking me up. She works nights, so she couldn't visit much during the stay. Erin just texted me later that day, asking if I was done being mad. Yet I don't even know where to go from here. I love my sister. But this whole thing opened my eyes to the fact that she can be incredibly self-absorbed. I've always excused it because she's younger, still in college, still figuring her life out. But this week made me see that when it really matters, she might not be the person I can rely on right now. I'm keeping things civil but distant. I told her straight up that she let me down and that I won't be putting her as my emergency contact anymore. She scoffed and said I was being over the top. But honestly, I don't care. I'd rather have a friend on that line who I know will show up when it counts. This whole experience was lonely, scary, and honestly eye-opening. I thought my sister and I were close. Maybe we still are in a superficial way. But in terms of actual reliability, I can't count on her. And that realization is both heartbreaking and freeing. It's been about a month since I posted, and I wanted to give a final update because things have more or less settled. After I got discharged, I really did step back from my sister Erin. I didn't want to be petty or drag out the fight, but I also wasn't going to sweep it under the rug for a while. Our contact was surface level. Occasional texts, short replies, nothing deep. She didn't apologize, and I wasn't going to beg her to. 2 weeks later, she invited me to lunch to talk it out. I went, but I kept my expectations low. Over lunch, she admitted she hadn't realized how serious things were. She said she thought fainting was just fainting, and that since I wasn't in the ICU, she figured it wasn't urgent. I told her straight up that it wasn't about whether I was on my deathbed. It was about showing up when I asked for help. I said that when you're someone's emergency contact, the bar is higher. She sat quiet for a while and then said, "I guess I didn't think of it that way." She still didn't apologize outright, but it was the closest she's ever come to taking responsibility for Erin. That's a big step, and I decided to accept it for what it was. Meanwhile, I officially changed my emergency contact to my friend Lauren. When I told Erin, she rolled her eyes, but I explained it wasn't punishment. It was about practicality. Lauren proved she'd be there, and that matters more than a title on paper. The silver lining of all this is it made me realize the importance of chosen family. I used to think of my sister as the person I could always count on. But this experience showed me that reliability doesn't come from blood. It comes from action. Lauren, who had no obligation, stepped up and cared for me in ways Erin didn't. That hit me hard, but also gave me clarity. As for Erin and me, we're in a better place now. But it's a different kind of relationship. I don't hold this over her head. But I also don't rely on her the way I used to. I still love her. But I love myself enough to set boundaries and make sure I'm not left stranded again. So yeah, final takeaway. Sometimes the people you expect to show up won't, and the people you least expect will. It hurt. But I think I needed that lesson, and honestly, I feel stronger for it. Thanks to everyone who commented, messaged, and reminded me that I wasn't overreacting. It helped me find my backbone when I was doubting myself. Stories number 9. I accidentally created the weirdest sleep protocol that actually works. So guys, let me tell you how I screwed up my life for 3 months and accidentally discovered a completely stupid sleep technique that now makes me sleep like a baby. It all started when I moved into a crappy apartment with neighbors who party until 4 a.m. I was completely burnt out, sleeping 3 hours max per night and looking like a zombie. My girlfriend kept saying I looked like a walking corpse at first. I tried all the classic stuff: melatonin, earplugs, sleep mask, even guided meditation on YouTube. Nothing worked because of the noise next door. One night I completely lost it. I went out on my balcony at 2 a.m. in my boxers, classy, and yelled at my neighbors, except instead of going back inside after, I fell asleep on my camping chair outside. It was like 46 degrees in November. I woke up at 7 a.m. completely frozen, but weirdly I had slept amazingly well. Like better than I had in months. I figured it was just exhaustion. But out of curiosity I tried it again the next night. Same thing. I slept like a rock, despite the cold. After a week I had this completely insane routine. I'd go outside every night around 11 p.m., stay out there 20 minutes freezing my ass off, then come back in and pass out cold. I did some research and apparently there's real science behind it. Cold activates your parasympathetic nervous system, and then when you go back inside warm, your body just crashes. Plus the temperature drop on your skin sends sleep signals to your brain. Now I've been doing my little balcony cryotherapy session every night for 4 months, 15-20 minutes outside in a t-shirt no matter the weather. Then straight to bed. I sleep 8 hours straight, even when my neighbors are having their rave parties. My girlfriend thought I'd lost my mind at first, but now she does it too. We look like two penguins on our balcony every night, but we sleep like kings. The funny thing is, I told some friends about it, and now there's 6 of us doing our little nightly freezing ritual. We created a WhatsApp group we called the Insomniac Eskimos. Anyway, if you have sleep problems and you've tried everything, give it a shot. Go freeze your ass off for 20 minutes before bed. It's free, it works, and it gives you an excuse to wear ugly, thick sweaters. TLDR. I started voluntarily freezing myself on my balcony every night to sleep better, and it works like crazy. Stories number 10. My roommate's boyfriend treats our washer like his personal laundry service, and I finally snapped, so I, 26F, let's call me Allison, share a 2-bedroom apartment with my roommate, Samantha, 25F. We've lived together for about a year, and honestly, for the most part, she's been a decent roommate. We're not best friends who hang out all the time, but we get along fine enough. Split rent, keep the kitchen somewhat clean, take turns with trash, that kind of thing. About 6 months ago, Samantha started dating this guy, Ethan, 27M. At first, I thought he was fine, friendly, kind of funny, the kind of boyfriend you don't mind being around because he says hi and makes small talk instead of awkwardly skulking in the background. But as the months went by, it became pretty clear that Ethan wasn't just visiting. He was basically living with us. He doesn't pay rent, but his stuff is everywhere. His sneakers line the entryway. His Xbox is hooked up to our TV. His groceries take up a whole shelf in the fridge, and his toiletries are stacked in our bathroom. If you didn't know better, you'd assume the 3 of us were roommates now. I could live with most of that. I don't love tripping over his size 12 Nikes every time I walk in the door, but I can deal. What I cannot deal with is the laundry situation. Our apartment only has one washer-dryer combo unit. It's not fancy, but it gets the job done. As long as people actually respect the fact that 2 people, not 3, not 4, not however many loads Ethan decides to crank out, are sharing it. Ethan, however, treats it like it's his personal laundromat. He'll bring over a giant duffel bag of clothes and do massive loads, which, fine. Whatever. The problem is that once the clothes are washed, he just leaves them for days, sometimes damp in the washer, sometimes sitting in the dryer halfway wrinkled. It's like he forgets they even exist. The first time it happened, I shrugged it off. Everyone forgets laundry once in a while, but then it kept happening, and it wasn't just, oh, I forgot it for a few hours. We're talking 48 to 72 hours of damp clothes fermenting in the washer. And here's the thing. I don't want to be the one who has to touch his stuff. I barely know this guy, and it feels weird and gross to handle his boxers and gym shorts just so I can clean my own clothes. Situation came to a head last week. I had an important work event, a networking dinner that I couldn't just roll into wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I needed to wash this blouse that I'd been saving, so I go to do laundry the night before, and sure enough, the washer is full. His clothes had been sitting there for 2 whole days. I knock on Samantha's door and go, "Hey, can you ask Ethan to deal with his laundry? I need to wash something for work tomorrow." She doesn't even look up from her phone. She just goes, "Oh yeah, he'll get to it later." I just stood there like, later doesn't help me when my thing is tomorrow. But she shrugged, so I ended up taking his wet clothes out myself, piling them into an empty basket, and throwing my blouse in the wash, and I hated every second of it. Fast forward a few hours, Ethan shows up, sees his clothes in the basket, and immediately gets all huffy. "Ethan, why did you take my stuff out of the washer?" Me. "Because it was sitting there for 2 days, and I needed to use it." "You can't just leave your clothes forever. This isn't your apartment." Ethan. "Relax. You could have just waited. Or, if you needed it so bad, you can just move my stuff. It's not a big deal." Me. "It is a big deal because you're hogging the only machine we have, and I shouldn't have to babysit your laundry. If you want to keep doing this, get your own washer and dryer in your own place." At this point, Samantha comes out of her room. Instead of backing me up, she takes his side. "Samantha, Allison, you're kind of making this awkward. It's just laundry." Me. "No, it's not just laundry when I can't use the machine in my own apartment because your boyfriend treats it like storage. They both rolled their eyes like I was being uptight. Ethan muttered something about me being territorial, and then they spent the rest of the night giving me the cold shoulder, and it hasn't stopped since for the past week. They've both been acting like I committed some huge crime, doors slamming, whispered conversations, Samantha barely talking to me. But here's the thing. Ethan doesn't pay rent. His name isn't on the lease. He doesn't contribute to utilities. Yet somehow I'm the bad guy for asking him not to monopolize our washer and leave his underwear soaking in there for days on end. I'm starting to feel like I'm losing my mind. I keep wondering if maybe I was too harsh for confronting him directly, instead of only going through Samantha. But at the same time, how many times am I supposed to quietly deal with this before I snap? That's where things stand right now. Ethan is still here practically every day. Samantha is frosty with me. And the laundry situation hasn't gotten any better. I've been using a local laundromat just to avoid the headache, which feels ridiculous considering I pay rent for a place with a washer, dryer. So yeah, that's the story. I don't know if I'm being unreasonable, or if I just need to set even firmer boundaries, but right now, I feel like I'm the only adult in this apartment update. My roommate's boyfriend and the laundry wars. It's been about 3 weeks since my original post, and I wanted to give an update because things definitely escalated, so after I posted, I decided to pull back and try to keep things civil. I didn't want to start World War III over laundry, even though I still thought I was in the right for the first week. I just kept going to the laundromat down the street. It was inconvenient and annoying, but at least it meant I wasn't constantly fighting with Samantha and Ethan. The problem was that avoiding the washer didn't magically fix the situation. Ethan didn't take the hint. In fact, he seemed to get even more comfortable. He started leaving his laundry in the dryer too, so not only were his damp clothes sitting in the washer for days, but his dry ones were clogging up the machine as well. One Friday night, I came home from work and saw the machine was full again. Ethan's stuff. I had a date the next day and needed to wash a couple things, so I texted Samantha, "Hey, can you ask Ethan to clear his laundry out tonight? I need to use the machine." No response. An hour later, Ethan himself strolls in, drops his backpack in the living room, and sits down to play Xbox. I ask him directly, "Can you please move your laundry?" He waves me off with, "I'll get to it after this game." Spoiler, he did not get to it after that game. At this point, I'm beyond frustrated. I move his clothes again into a basket, run my load, and go to bed. The next morning, I wake up to a very loud argument outside my door. Samantha is furious. She's saying, "Allison has no right to touch your stuff. That's so disrespectful." Ethan chimes in with, "Yeah, it's weird she keeps handling my clothes, like, is she obsessed with me or something?" I was half asleep, but when I heard that, I got up, opened my door, and went, "Are you kidding me? I don't want to touch your laundry. I only do it because you leave it sitting for days. Don't flatter yourself." That shut him up real quick. But Samantha doubled down. She accused me of creating drama, and said if I didn't like how things were run, maybe I should move out. That's when I finally snapped. I reminded her that my name is on the lease, not his, that he doesn't pay a cent, doesn't contribute to utilities, and yet acts like he's entitled to our space. I told her flat out, if he's going to basically live here, then either he starts paying rent or I'm talking to the landlord. Silence. Then Samantha stormed off and slammed her door. Since then, things have been tense. Ethan hasn't been around quite as much. I think maybe he was embarrassed by the rent comment. But Samantha is clearly resentful. She barely speaks to me except for one word: answers. The one good thing is that Ethan's laundry habits have improved. He still leaves stuff longer than I'd like, but not for days anymore. I don't know if it's because of my ultimatum or because he's trying not to push me further, but I'll take the small win that said, I don't think this living situation is sustainable long term. I've started casually looking at new apartments. My lease is up in a few months, and honestly, the idea of not dealing with Ethan's socks in my washer ever again is pretty motivating. I do feel a little guilty because Samantha and I used to be fine before he came into the picture, but at this point, I think she's made her choice. So that's where things are now. Tolerable, but icy. I'm basically counting down the months until I can move and be free of this nonsense. Final update. The laundry situation is officially over. It's been a couple of months since my last update, and things have finally come to a head. In a way I honestly didn't expect after my last post. I was leaning toward moving out when my lease ended. I figured that was the easiest way to escape the drama with Samantha and her boyfriend Ethan. But then life kind of forced the issue sooner. Here's what happened. About a month ago, I came home from work and found the laundry machine full again. Only this time, it wasn't just a load of clothes Ethan had shoved in a comforter, a bunch of sheets, and some towels, and then left them soaking in there for 3 days. By the time I noticed, the whole thing smelled like mildew. I was done. I marched straight to Samantha's room and said, "This is it. Either Ethan comes to get his stuff out tonight, or I'm throwing it in trash bags." She rolled her eyes and said, "You're so dramatic, Allison. Just rewash it if it bothers you." That was the breaking point. Instead of arguing, I went to my room, pulled out my phone, and emailed our landlord. I explained that Ethan had been essentially living in the apartment without being on the lease, and that his constant use of utilities and, yes, his laundry habits were a problem. The landlord responded the next day, and things moved fast after that. He reminded Samantha that only tenants listed on the lease are allowed to live there, and that if she wanted Ethan to stay regularly, she'd have to add him and pay higher rent. Otherwise, Ethan had to go. Samantha was furious. She accused me of snitching and ruining her relationship. Ethan, meanwhile, packed up his stuff in a sulk and stopped coming over for a while. Here's where it gets wild. About 2 weeks later, Samantha told me she was moving out early to go live with Ethan. She said she didn't want to live with a control freak who can't share. Honestly, I was thrilled. The landlord agreed to let her break her part of the lease as long as I found a new roommate, which wasn't hard. A co-worker of mine, Danielle, was looking for a place, and she moved in pretty quickly, and let me tell you, the difference is night and day. Danielle actually cleans up after herself. We split chores fairly, and most importantly, if she does laundry, she doesn't abandon it for half a week. It's such a relief. As for Samantha and Ethan, I've heard through mutual friends that they're living together now and already fighting constantly about money and bills. I guess laundry was just the beginning of his bad habits. Looking back, I don't regret speaking up. For a while, I felt guilty about making things awkward. But honestly, Ethan and Samantha were the ones being disrespectful by treating our apartment like a free-for-all now. I've got a peaceful home, a good roommate, and a washer that isn't permanently occupied by someone else's socks. Honestly, that's a happy ending in my book, so yeah. Laundry wore over and lesson learned. Never let a roommate's partner move in unofficially, unless you're prepared to deal with all their dirty laundry, literally and figuratively. Stories number 11. Tifu by making a lady think I was asking her on a date. So I am 25, live in a relatively small town. Everyone knows everyone kind of deal. And so a lot of people recognize me, and especially my dogs, so I left my apartment to go to the grocery store. When this lady passes me with her tiny puppy, we make eye contact as it eagerly bounces towards me, and I ask if I can greet it. She says yes, and I do so. We start doing a little small talk, and eventually asks, "You have a Chihuahua, right?" I say yes, and she asks if she's good with other dogs. Again, I say yes, and she brings up that her dog needs to meet other dogs, and so I smile and her and say that my dog would be perfect, as she's very patient with other dogs. Here's where I probably effed up. I add that if she wants, she can have my number, and we can set up a doggy date. Suddenly she gets awkward and looks terrified as she just says, "Ah, no thank you, sorry," and soon ends the conversation, just agreeing that if we meet up while walking our dogs, they can meet. Anyway, so now I want to sink underground and never come back. I just hope she doesn't think I'm some creep. TLDR, I asked a stranger woman if she wanted to set up a doggy play date, and she thought I asked her for a date. Stories number 12. You do not owe your oppressors empathy. I am seeing so many clutch their pearls at the people celebrating Kirk's death. He was a father. Yeah. Well, he literally said he would force his 10-year-old daughter to carry a rapist's baby if put in that situation. He was a vile person that spent his life, made money off preaching hate and actively harming marginalized groups. He was a real threat to women, POC, LGBT. A lot of us experienced real harm and worse lives because of him. How many trans people have been attacked, killed, even because of his influence and reach? Why the fuck should they be guilted right now for not grieving right now? A trans person I admire said it well, "I am also a life." Kirk told the world they should not exist, and now he does not. This actually explains well, though, why conservative men are so obsessed with having kids. They can be as evil and despicable as they like, but them being a family man, seems to give them a type of untouchability in patriarchal society. Families used like props to uplift them. He was still an awful person. I don't feel sorry for him, only his family. Stories number 13. Lady tried to cut in front of me to order. I have a 30-min lunch. It's not a strict 30 minutes, but I like to go out, grab food quickly, then get back to my desk to eat comfortably. I went to Walmart this time because the food at the hot bar is cheap and it's close to my work. They are always understaffed, so as usual when I walk up to the hot bar, there's no one behind the counter. I'm waiting for maybe 2 minutes before 3 kids come running and yelling from the grocery section, pointing at the food and pressing their noses up against the glass. Their mom finally comes around from the produce while talking loudly on the phone and stands uncomfortably close to me. The employee eventually makes her way out, maybe a 5 to 6 min wait at this point, and kind of looks at both of us and says, "How may I help you? I'm about to order." When the mom speaks up and starts to order, I immediately tell her no. I was here first and I'm in a rush. The mom literally had a surprised Pikachu face and stammered something I didn't hear because I started to order and walked away with my platter. I'm usually a non-confrontational person, but clearly she had all the time leisurely walking through Walmart and was ordering for multiple people. On what earth would she go ahead of me? I hated having to speak up, but proud that I did. Sorry, we're not NPCs in your world. Everyone else has stuff going on too. Stories number 14. I found out my husband brags about me to his friends. My husband still chats with his old high school college buddies online. The other day he was gaming with one of them, stepped away, and I made small talk with his friend. Out of nowhere, he asked about a project I'd been working on. I was confused. How did he even know? He laughed and said my husband's always talking about me. My cooking, my projects, just everything I do. Apparently it shocks them because my husband is usually sarcastic and only gives backhanded compliments to everyone else except me. We've been married 10 years, and somehow I love him even more now. Stories number 15. AITJ for making my coworker pay me back after she ate my labeled lunch for the 3rd time. I 30F work in an office where everyone knows fridge theft is an issue. I always label my meals. One coworker 26F has accidentally eaten my food multiple times. Each time, she apologizes and says she was too hungry to think straight. Last week, I brought homemade lasagna that took hours to make. At lunch, it was gone. I caught her heating it up. I told her to give it back. She laughed and said she already started eating. I told her she owed me $25 ingredients, plus my time. She rolled her eyes but eventually transferred it. Now she's telling everyone I extorted her for food, and that I'm making the office hostile. Some coworkers say I overreacted. Others say she deserved it. AITJ for demanding money instead of just letting it slide. Stories number 16. AITA for not wanting my daughter's party turned into a pregnancy announcement. My Bill 30NR has lived with my husband and I on and off for close to 8 years. Even when my husband and I had kids, he lived with us last year. He got serious about finding a serious relationship. I was happy for him when he found someone in November. He moved into her house in December. In April, they found out BIL's girlfriend is pregnant. She's due in January. She told her family right away and left it up to BIL to tell he chose to be a coward and say nothing. Well, tomorrow my daughter is turning 2, and BIL has decided that is when he'll tell everyone. Mostly because when they show up, his girlfriend is very obviously pregnant. I'm kind of livid. Phil is known to fly off the handle for things our son ate. A goldfish cracker off our floor, and Phil had a fit about how disgusting that was, made a scene, and stormed out of a get-together. He's also told my husband that he needs to watch himself because apparently I'm not the right kind of woman. Back to the party. I don't want this announcement to happen because if Phil flies off the handle, my daughter's party is ruined. Even if he doesn't, it's suddenly going to be a pregnancy gender reveal, and no one is going to remember why they're actually there. I know my daughter won't remember it, but I will. My husband thinks it's not a big deal and he's excited. I've tried to communicate my anxiety about it, but he says his dad will be fine. I told him the only way this is happening is if his brother goes to their parents' house well before the party and tells them otherwise. I'll be kicking people out. He scoffed but said, "Okay." Now I'm just really conflicted. ATA? Relevant comments. Commenter. NTA. Bil is going to be too cowardish to say something. You could always beat them to the punch and spill the beans for him. Would it be a dick move? Yeah. But also they shouldn't be co-opting your kid's birthday to announce a pregnancy. Reply. I've been trying so hard not to drop hints to the in-laws. My husband and I have known since April. Bill just hasn't told their parents. Commenter. Don't. Invite your FIL, if he is that delicate, and tell your Bill he isn't invited unless he tells everyone before the party. Reply. I pondered these options. I'm also worried for the girlfriend's feelings. I don't know her too well, and I'm sure Bill has told her how Phil was growing up. But it's one thing to hear stories about it, versus being the target of his rage-filled rants. I've experienced quite a few. Commenter. I am wondering if brother-in-law moved in with girlfriend, and is helping pay any of the expenses. Sounds like he has always been a mooch and girlfriend, needs to know that that's his game plan moving forward. Sounds like a real loser to me. Did he help with rent or anything when he lived with you and your husband? Did he work? Reply. When he moved in with her, he had been out of a job company went under for a few months. He got a grown-up job just before they found out she was pregnant. While he was out of work and living with her, girlfriend expected the house be clean and he do the cooking. He made a comment about how he felt like a 1950s housewife. Commenter. NTA. Honestly, your husband is the biggest asshole for not having your back. I would take the birthday girl and yourself and go celebrate her somewhere else on your own since Fael already doesn't like you. Husband isn't supporting you or respecting your boundaries and home together. And his little-ass brother wants to hijack his nieces. Own birthday BC, he's a coward. Just go enjoy that day with her and let that bomb explode on its own. If husband doesn't like that, he should have had your back. Hope he at least has your side when his family is nasty to you. Reply. He does usually have my back. His dad is the only one with a problem with me. When I was talking to him about why he thought it was a good idea, he said because we had such a great experience telling his parents about our pregnancies. He wanted to be there for his brother in that moment. I had to remind him at the time of our first pregnancy. We'd been married 2 years and together for 9, where Bill met, moved in with, and got pregnant in 5 months. More on OOP's husband's relationship with his brother. Reply. My husband has the mentality that he needs to look out for his brother. He's the oldest and it shows. So when his brother gets in a pickle, we take him in. However, this time when Bil said he was moving out, I made it extremely clear that if this relationship goes south, he is not to come back here. He's 30 and needs to start acting like it. My husband agreed with this commenter. Why is this going to cause Phil to be upset? Reply. Phil is old-fashioned. Even after being with my husband for 9 years when our first was born, Phil told my husband to protect himself, just in case. So I can't imagine what he'll have to say about a woman that's been around less than a year, not married, and pregnant. That's why I'm concerned for the girlfriend's feelings, especially because she was pushing Bil to tell everyone at 12 weeks. To be clear, no one else in the family is judgmental like this. Just Phil update. Well, if anyone smelled smoke today, it was probably the dumpster fire that was my daughter's party. Firstly, Phil actually seemed to take the news pretty well. Surprisingly, Emil was more angry that he waited so long to tell them no scene was made. However, every conversation from that point forward was all about the baby and pregnancy and how girlfriend told her parents, "Is there a name yet?" etc. Mill made a comment about how my husband and I can now give Bill and girlfriend all the baby stuff we're not using anymore as an added bonus. Bill also decided to use this opportunity to tell everyone him and his girlfriend are engaged, and they're planning a big move to relocate closer to her family, and I guess us before she's due. So on top of the baby questions, there was also conversations about wedding planning and house hunting as another addition. My sister and her daughter came. Except my niece has an active staph infection and has been on antibiotics for 24 hours, but this wasn't mentioned to us until the party was almost over. It was assumed to not be a big deal because all open wounds were covered and she'd had 24 hours of antibiotics. My husband was furious and pulled me to the side to say some not nice things about it. After that, I shut down. I isolated myself, putting together my daughter's new toys. Everyone left pretty early and everyone was feeling tense. I'm feeling upset and defeated. and now I have to monitor my 3 young kids for signs of a staph infection and try to sanitize my house. I think I'm done having parties for a while. Relevant comments, commenter. So is your husband pissed at his family as well? 'Cause both your families suck. Reply. No, he's really pleased with how his family was, commenter. So your husband definitely sucks. Stories number 17, Tifu. My dog tried to tell me I was making a mistake. We were driving home from visiting my family. It's 2 days driving, so it's a long trip and we have 2 dogs. My spouse does almost all the driving, so that leaves me to deal with the dogs. Fair enough, we are about an hour away from home, and both dogs are getting restless and acting like they just want to get out of the car. I totally understand their feelings, but we still have an hour left. They had been let out recently for a bathroom break, so we just need to get home. I hear one dog make an odd sound, so I glance in the back seat and observe them pooping. We do have a car seat cover at least. I quickly unbuckle and crawl into the back, telling my spouse that it's okay, I've got this, please just keep driving. Dear readers, I did not in fact got this, I cleaned up that mess, and was about to move back to the front seat, when I unfortunately stuck my hand in some poop I hadn't seen. I go to get this cleaned up, but the location is such that if I try to clean the car seat cover, I'm going to mush the poop into the seatbelt buckle, and I really don't want to do that. I make an executive decision that I will just remove the seat cover in such a way that the poop stays in the cover and we will just toss it out when we get home. I was able to successfully complete this task. Then the dog vomits all over the now uncovered back seat. I again reassure my spouse that it's under control and just keep driving. As I'm nearly done cleaning that up, the dog then suddenly gets into his pooping stance again. I had a Clorox wipe in my hand already, so I thought fine, I will just catch the poop with the wipe and save myself another cleaning project. This is the moment where I royally screwed up. The dog looks back at me with a very panicked look in his eyes. I didn't have time to process what he was trying to tell me before diarrhea came gushing out of him and all over my hand, arm, and the poor back seat. Needless to say, I was still cleaning up when we arrived home, and I do love my dog very much. He was clearly having some tummy issues. He's a good boy, and it wasn't his fault, TLDR. Don't attempt to catch your dog's poop with a Clorox wipe. Stories number 18. AIT for telling my mom to stop giving my younger daughter gifts if she won't also give something to my stepdaughter. So here's some backstory. Back when I was about to get married in 2020, my mom called a family meeting with my brother and my other brother, who was on the phone from China. During that call, they basically trashed my then fiancé, now wife. My mom outright told me I was settling. They kept pushing me to move the wedding date because they said they didn't feel like they knew her, while at the same time refusing to make any effort to actually get to know her. For example, my mom wouldn't ask her a single question about herself. For context, my wife had been previously married and had a daughter, my stepdaughter, who was 6 at the time of our wedding. Ever since then, it has never felt like my family has fully accepted her. Fast forward to now. We've been married a few years, and I also have a 2-year-old daughter with my wife. Here's where the issue comes in. For both of my younger daughter's birthdays, my mom has gotten her gifts, but she has never gotten anything for my stepdaughter. Not once, because of custody agreements. It's not always easy to bring my stepdaughter to family events, but still, she is part of my family. My wife and I both feel strongly that things should be equal for both girls. So here's my dilemma. Would I be the a-hole if I told my mom to stop buying my younger daughter gifts, unless she's also willing to get something even small for my stepdaughter? Obviously, I can't physically stop her from buying gifts, but I've thought about telling her that any gifts she insists on giving will be donated or sold if she continues leaving my stepdaughter out. I don't want to punish my younger daughter, but I also don't want her growing up seeing obvious favoritism from my family. AITA if I put my foot down about this. Stories number 18. Aunt doesn't like reaping what she sows, so I 28NB have an aunt who we'll call Sam. She's always been an absolute fucked who goes into meltdown mode at the drop of a hat if things aren't going her way or if she's offended by the slightest thing. This almost 70-year-old woman will throw tantrums that rivaled my unmedicated, improperly medicated bipolar episodes as a child, and teen. I have plenty of stories about why she's a POS, but this subs for consequences, and she often didn't get any. This, though, happened last Monday because Sam's health is so shit. She gets disability and one of those super cheap apartments for low-income people. For whatever reason. They dropped the amount of disability due to a clerical error that can be fixed if she just called them. But this woman is epically lazy, and it's not because of the disability. I can assure you, but again, this is a completely different story on a sub about consequences, so just never did it, because she doesn't want her sister to be homeless and starving. My mother began funneling so much time and money into Sam. My parents are trying to save to retire, but they're basically funding Sam's whole life. Help with rent, gas for her car, power bill, food, cigarettes, basically everything. And every month Sam's disability has been gone sooner and sooner. In the month I could tell she was starting to take advantage of the help she knew my parents would give her, and I did mention it to Mom, but it was only a passing comment, not a discussion. Well, last Monday Sam came to Mom's house with her tin can out, ready to beg more money off her sister. She needed cat food. She can't afford any. Could Mom please help? My mother has mobility issues right now. Something is very wrong with her foot, and she can barely walk around her house. Never mind a store. So she couldn't go with Sam to the store. She also didn't have any cash on hand, so she gave my leech of an aunt her debit card. Noise I made at this point in my mother's explanation is something I will never be able to describe or replicate, so she told Sam, "Go to dollar store. Get food for your cat. A couple things for you to eat over the next few days. And 1 pack of cigarettes." This would have come out to about $20.25, Sam being Sam. She did not do that. She went to local chain grocery, where everything is insanely overpriced, spent $55, took an extra $20 in cash back when she got back to my mom's house and explained this, claiming she wasn't sure if the dollar store would have everything she needed. Mom was pissed. Then she found out about the $20 that Sam had taken out without permission for gas, and she went from pissed to apoplectic. Sam has spent the whole week begging Mom for the favors she usually does, and claiming her feelings are hurt because Mom won't talk to her. Mom just keeps responding that she's still mad, and Sam needs to leave her alone for a while to cool down, so Sam's not getting any money, any errands run, or any attention, and she hates it. She's throwing an epic fit, but she bit the hand that was feeding her and drew blood. Edit. I see all the people in the comments worried about Kitty. I promise she's fine. Sam adores her, and has raised her up from a stray kitten. Her apartment complex found a group of babies, but no mama to be found, to a lovely middle-aged cat. When not if, my parents are going to make sure she gets to a care home because this situation is untenable. Sam gets moved into a care home. Kitty is going to be moved into my parents' house. If for some reason they can't take her, I'm the backup. Kitty is and will be fine. Relevant. Comments. Commenter 1. God, I hope your mom cuts her out completely. Reply. We can only hope. Mom's been trying to shove her into a care home. She really needs it for months. But Sam just refuses to go to the necessary appointments. Commenter 2. Here's hoping your mom keeps adding those consequences until Sam gets the message. Reply. Cheers to that. I actually get the feeling that things are gonna start moving faster now because there's no way my stepdad isn't gonna get involved after this. And he gets shit done when he's been wronged, and he's the one working and paying for this stuff. So, yeah, I'm expecting results. Has OP's mother cut off money from Sam? Reply. My mother has completely cut off money and pretty much all errands, including those involved with getting Sam into a home. Basically, the only thing she's been doing is occasionally bringing Sam food. She's made it clear that it's up to Sam to get rides and find ways to pay her bills or get into a home. Because she's a grown adult, it's actually working pretty well, all things considered. She also wasn't invited to Thanksgiving, but things had cooled down enough by Christmas that she came to Christmas and things were very calm compared to the usual. Yeah, money is really tight for my parents right now, and I have no idea what her debit has on it, but I know they keep the majority of their money in the savings account. I'd guess there was about $100 in there. Sam spent $75 when Mom had essentially told her to take $25. Max. Commenter 3. Let's just hope that Aunt Leech didn't have the intelligence necessary to think about saving the card info to her phone to use on online purchases later. Reply. Oh nah, she's barely capable of using a cell phone, and my parents keep a close eye on their accounts. So if she did, she'd be caught instantly and the cars would go into canceled purgatory. Has Sam been taking care of her cat? Reply. She does dote on her kitty, I will give her that. The cat's in a very happy environment for herself, And when Sam's moved into a care home, my parents have already agreed to take her. And if, for whatever reason, they can't, I have also agreed to be second choice, but I already have 2 cats and there's a pet limit of 3 at my trailer park and I don't really want to give up that last slot if I don't have to. Plus it would probably upset my girls. I'll take her if I need to, but mom and stepdad are the better choice. They have 1 pretty chill cat and a happy little yappy dog commenter. 4. Your mom knew what would happen when she gave Sam the debit card and PIN too, setting Sam up for a fall, then acting like a victim jerk move by your mom. TBH, reply. She is a victim. She has been nothing but generous and helpful towards her sister for months. Sam came for money for cat food and mom said, "Oh, get some stuff to eat and a pack of cigarettes." 2. That was already going overboard in helping her just because I think she did something really stupid by giving Sam her debit card doesn't mean that it's okay that Sam stole upwards of $50 from her. I've been lent her debit card before when I was in my late teens, early 20s and still living at home, and you know what I did? I bought the things I needed at the place where they were cheapest and came home with a receipt for my mother. The fact that a 70-ish-year-old lady can't have the same self-control as an ADHD bipolar young adult is not my mother's fault. OP on their mother's foot, reply. There's currently no diagnosis, but it's not that. This has been going on for months. Her whole foot is either numb or painful, and I actually don't know when it started because mom only mentioned it to me when she said she got a new doctor. Commenter 5. Wow. So why didn't your mom try to fix the disability checks? Reply. Because it has to be done by the person who actually got disability. A fake. I actually don't know much about what's wrong or how it works because I didn't ever really ask for details. All I know is they dropped the amount they gave. Her OP's parents should focus on saving for retirement instead of helping Sam. Reply. They're pretty prepared for moving on. There's actually a timeline for them, and they are still saving. They'll be across the country by this time next year with stepdad's parents in Idaho. It's been mom's dream for decades to move out. There they have been saving for retirement still, which is why the belt is so tight for them, right? Now, and they will be able to save a lot more once Sam is in a home. My stepdad has worked at the same company for decades, and I don't know the exact details, is getting a huge cash bonus in the beginning of the year, which will really help their retirement account. They don't expect me to take care of them. My own health is really bad. If I was ever in their plans to help with their golden years, I was swiftly taken out of the running after my coma. Additional information from OOP, giving an example regarding Sam's behaviors. Reply. I'll tell you a few things that have happened to maybe paint a broader picture of her personality. My 21st birthday party started cracking just barely not homophobic jokes about me being gay until I literally left my own birthday party and went home Easter Sunday about 8 years ago. My grandpa started making jokes about the Me Too movement. I cut him off and pointed out that it's not funny to joke about victims of rape and sexual harassment. Sam started ranting extremely loudly about how people are going to disagree with you and you can't expect them to be so sensitive for a good 5-8 minutes. We were in a family restaurant Easter Sunday. The next year, note that most interactions I have on here are from holidays because, as previously stated, I am as no contact as possible with this woman. My fiancé and I were living in the basement apartment of my grandfather's house. One of our bosses at the time needed to pick some keys up from us. He was in the driveway for less than a minute, and as he left, Sam was screaming insults at him. Grandpa had gone to pick her up, and she literally got out of the car while it was waiting to get in the driveway to screech at my fucking boss. Then she saw my partner, meeting them for the very first time, and started screaming abuse and insults at them. 2. I came upstairs because my partner hadn't come back down and heard this, and lost my absolute shit like I had never before, leading to a screaming match that just got worse and worse. At one point she got one of those heavy manual can openers from the kitchen and was holding it up like she was going to throw it at me while still screaming about how stupid and terrible I was and how I was making her act like this, and it was of course all my fault. I told her she was acting insane and she shrieked, "I take my meds," in the most accusatory tone I've ever heard. She was implying that I don't take my psych meds, which I do, and her taking her psych meds doesn't mean much when she's chasing me around the house, yelling that she hates me and that I'm stupid and crazy. Christmas. A few years ago, some of mom and stepdad's friends come to Christmas dinner because most of the family has moved away or passed away, and Mom gets sad that it's just me, partner, her, stepdad, and Sam. I introduced myself and my partner by our chosen names. We are both NB and do not like our dead names. Sam, who was in the same room as us, went on a rampage where she said that those were couple nicknames we call each other. And when I tried to very politely diffuse the situation by firmly stating that no, these are the names we use and want to be called by, she freaked out and said that it wasn't my name because it wasn't on my birth certificate. BTW, my dead name is actually two dead name because I was given two first names at birth. I have exclusively gone by the first name only. But apparently that's okay even though it also doesn't match up with the birth certificate. I continued to firmly try and shut her down. I managed to keep from screaming myself this time. And she just got more and more hysterical until she finally just fucking left. Because I had offended her so badly, she used to live with my grandpa for free, and all she was expected to do was keep the house clean. She never cleaned. There were always months' worth of food stuck to the stove. The counters and floors were filthy, and she spent most of the time laying down and watching TV. She spent thousands of dollars of grandpa's money on scratch-off tickets. When she finally got kicked out, they found hundreds of tickets in her bedroom. For 2 years during this decade, the Christmas decorations were up year-round because she refused to put them away. None of these issues were ever resolved until my mom stepped in and cleaned the house, put away the decorations because she hated watching her dad live in that filthy house. But it wasn't Mom's job to do that. It was Sam's. She just didn't. Grandpa finally kicked her out after she did something really egregious that I don't recall. But I've seen this woman beat on the hood of a visitor's car with her fists in full-blown hysteria. She sees a psychologist, but IDK if that's even helping. A little update. Anyone who was worried about my mother's leg issue, there were a few people in the comments. She had a clot or something that was cutting off blood flow to her foot and part of her calf. They managed to get rid of it before it ruined her leg badly enough to require amputation, and she is fine now. Currently packing for my parents' move across the country when my stepdad retires in November. Actually, Sam's cat is safe. She ended up being taken by the neighbors Sam got her from as a kitten. Now, on to the important bit. After Sam blatantly taking advantage of the fact that my mother had something wrong with her leg and couldn't walk around her own house, let alone accompany her to the store, Mom took a huge step back. No more rides, Sam's an adult. No more money, Sam's an adult. The only thing that Sam really got from anyone was the occasional box of food, mostly food from the food bank that my fiancé and I were not planning on eating. No more going above and beyond for a woman who refuses to get herself help and screams constant insults. I'd say it might be dementia, except she's been this crazy my whole life. Despite this, Sam started getting more and more demanding, using her increasingly poor health and mobility to try to bludgeon my mother into helping her. To the point where one of the examples Mom gave me, she couldn't get up from the toilet without help, so she called my mom, demanding that she drive 45 minutes to Sam's house to help Sam off the toilet, only for a neighbor to have already done it by the time Mom got there. Sam ended up in the hospital. I think someone called an ambulance for her. I'm not sure, as Mom just said she went to the hospital, and I am so proud of my mother. Sam called her and demanded she get some of her things from Sam's apartment for her hospital stay. Mom said okay, left the stuff at reception. Then she drove home. She told me that in the moment Sam called her, she knew this would be the last favor she did for Sam. The last time they would have contact. She didn't even bother bringing Sam's shit directly to Sam. Sam has lung cancer and will be going into hospice. And that is all we know and all I care to know. This all actually isn't new news. Mom cut her off months ago. Sam could very well be dead by now, and I wouldn't know it. If there's a funeral, I ain't going. I hate this woman. She has made my life hell for 2.5 decades, and I severed any emotional attachment to her years and years ago, since I finally don't have to keep any kind of cordial relationship with Sam to keep my mother out of the crossfire. I am free. I never have to speak to that woman again. Routed all her calls to voicemail and muted her text notifications. I'm never going to speak to her again. Mom and stepdad are never going to speak to her again. Hell, even her brother, who is a scumbag in a completely different way, is never going to speak to her again. Her terrible behavior, hysterical tantrums, threats of harm, entitled attitude, and just generally being awful has led to the consequences of her inevitably dying alone from a terrible disease with no sympathy from me TLDR. The consequences stuck and Sam's gonna die alone in hospice from lung cancer. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Happy ending for all, even Kitty. Commenter 2. I remembered the original post as soon as I started reading, and I'm so glad OP let us know Kitty is safe. OP. I'm glad this woman's out of you and your family's lives. I hope you can all put her out of your minds altogether soon. She's not worth the mental energy it takes to think about her. Reply. Oh, I totally agree. It's why I took so long to post the update. I literally just forgot about her for a while. Not my problem, never again. OP offers a peek of their own cats. They do not have a picture of Sam's cat. Reply. Cat Tax 1. Cat Tax 2. Yeah, the blurring is mostly because I have pretty severe nerve damage in my hands and arms, and my phone jiggles all over the place while I tremble. Tremble, tremble, love. How you said the second one is smart because I just had a conversation about her head being full of air. She makes a dial-up noise in her head. Constantly. Commenter 3. That was an expensive $75. Reply. It's crazy to think that if she hadn't been so brazen about disregarding Mom's instructions for what to do with Mom's debit card, Mom might have let her leech for so much longer. Commenter 4. Pour one out for the healthcare workers who have to deal with this bish during her lucid moments. The good drugs, they're not for Sam. They're for the CNAs.